Been with me for a long time. Going live.
There's gotta be.
Yeah. Order.
All right, time being 6:15, I call to order the City of Glenwood Springs City Council meeting. It is October 16th, 2025. This is our regular meeting tonight. And with that, I'll say hello, everyone. Good night. Oh, good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Liz, would you please take a roll call?
Mayor Dame,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski,
Present.
Councilman Smith,
Present.
Councilor Schachter,
Here.
Councilor Weimer,
Here.
Councilor Schmal,
Here.
Councilor Townsley. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Any agenda changes tonight? Okay, we'll see none. We'll move on. Disclosure of any counselor's conflict of interest for tonight's agenda. Also see none. We'll get to item 4. An item is for citizens appearing before council for items that are not on the agenda. So any other grievance or happy comments? Glad to hear it. Please come forward, state your name and whether you live in the city or not.
Hi, guys. I'm Leo McKinney. I live in the city, and I'll be speaking on every item tonight. I just want to invite you guys to a gathering that's happening this Saturday down here in downtown. I know some of you, I don't know all of you, and I don't necessarily know what everybody's perspective is on things going national, but I think there's going to be a lot of people in the community there, and it'd be great to see you. So I just want to invite you. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Thanks for letting us know. Anybody else? Any other comments? Please come forward, name and whether you live in the city or not.
Yes, Matt Spidell, city limits, citizen and business owner here. Another invite. I'm working with ROTC this Saturday at the Glenwood Community Center. A PT session a free PT session for anyone that wants to come to build up for Veterans Day to November 11th. So we're kind of going to kick off for junior ROTC members. We're going to sell a little card, but most of it's just to do a free workout for 45 minutes.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for letting us know.
Matt, what was that?
When or what?
When?
This Saturday at the rec center, 8:30 to 9:15.
You
Okay.
use TRX as part of that deal?
I don't know. We'll find out. The military branches are all representing tire rolls and pull-ups and push-up stuff.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we'll see none. We'll close the public portion of that aspect and we'll get to council announcements. Any announcements? We'll start with Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I will announce that I was cruising the neighborhood this week. Saw park staff really on the job at the 3 Mile Creek confluence with Midland. They've been just diligent in working up those flower beds around that historic bridge and getting weeds out. Very, very nice cleanup and makes the neighborhood look more proud. They've also been working on the Brush Creek Park Trail that we discussed with some citizens on an outing. A few of us were there in the neighborhood. The trail that's been restored since the 3 Mile Creek Park work kind of got altered to dissatisfaction for some residents. And the crews are out there reworking the gravel to make it a little easier to navigate. So it looks really nice to see prompt response to those citizen suggestions. Historic Preservation Commission met last week. Among other things, just before the meeting, I interviewed a candidate that is listed on consent agenda, but Lauren DeFresnes, I think, is going to be a remarkable addition to the commission. She's bright. She's very personable. She's professional. She's working for a local architect, but with a specialty in historic preservation and historic remodeling. So I think she's going to be a great addition to that commission. The commission also reported that the result of its having completed its historic, there's a section 106, I think, a state formal review of project areas, and they've applied that opportunity to the South Bridge route. And we're looking primarily at the coke ovens to cross-reference that with plans, design plans, and the details in the environmental assessment. They came up that it looks like they are satisfied with the accommodations being provided to protect the coke ovens and related access points. They also, that's all they did. I attended the RAFTA board meeting on October 9th. And among other things at that board, they approved the lease purchase arrangement for their relatively new RAFTA employee housing at the old Roadway Inn on 6th and 24. I think they're calling it the Iron Mountain Inn or something like that. But they're studio apartments now for their bus drivers. And they're making that a little bit more solidified with this lease purchase agreement to make the financing work better. The board also updated its strategic plan with focus on Rio Grande corridor protection and trail protection, overall finances, improved and expanded transit services. There will be a Rio Grande Trail corridor, a Rio Grande corridor tour on November 3rd. They had a tour weeks ago to look primarily at trail issues. They're going to be looking at easement and encroachment issues. Anybody's invited from the member governments on November 3rd. Workforce Housing Commission, Sumner will help me with this report, but Workforce Housing Commission met Monday, received a very thorough and detailed review, kind of an annual review or biannual review, the last 2 years that the commission has accomplished. Kevin Reyes, the staff director for that program, really had it down and really offered an inspiring summary that I'm going to suggest that he or our management staff send out to the council members for your reading. I think it captures the successes that the council has had and with investment decisions based on that workforce housing's advice and based on Kevin's leadership, which is about to end. That was the bummer at the end of the meeting. Kevin is leaving the city staff to take a different job. This sounds very cool, and he's excited about it. He was genuinely sad to be leaving. Got lots of congratulatory remarks from the board members, and I offered some there here as well. He's really taken an imaginative program based on a citizen-approved funding source and took it from scratch to 5 major programs that have had actual results putting people into homes. So I really appreciation to Kevin for his work, and sorry to see him go.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, one last thing
One
is I
more.
also attended the State Transportation Commission. The CDOT Commission was in town yesterday, and they had a tour prearranged with RAFTA to go look at their facilities and look at kind of their route connection management, and then also got to get a briefing on how RAFTA works. I was impressed. I thought RAFTA was pretty impressive, but looking at their facilities, hearing from their department managers, seeing how they do their budget and seeing how they move people and buses was really pretty overwhelming. So that was a neat tour. It also was an opportunity to have some really short but really thoughtful conversations with actual Transportation Commission members from the state, including Barbara Moman, who's this region's representative on that board. She was very appreciative of the tour and appreciative of conversations I think that we had about what's going on in Glenwood Springs. So it was kind of a fun opportunity to get faces with faces or faces with names. And get acquainted. And finally, I met this week for the third time with staff from Clean Energy Economy for the region and Garfield Clean Energy, their cousin branches of the same organization. They are seeking to apply for a share of $50 million that the state Colorado Energy Office is offering for what they call accelerator grants to improve energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. The kind of what we worked out tentatively is that Carbondale and Glenwood Springs would be interested in being the lead applicants on a cohort application, which could result in up to $5 million out of that fund coming to this county. It would be overseen by Clear and GCE as it's envisioned, with a portion of that fund available for member municipalities to apply for money. So we've been talking with staff about where that money might be spent in Glenwood Springs. The key thing for this group is that the city's participation will be captured primarily in a letter of endorsement for the grant application, which is due November 17th. So I'm working with city manager and city clerk about getting that onto the council's agenda for its next meeting. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. Any other announcements? See none. Entertaining a motion in the consent agenda tonight. We'll go with the Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. We have a motion. Councillor Weimer.
I'll second.
And a second. Excellent. Any discussion on the consent agenda? See none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? We'll see none. Motion passes. Moving on into our first action and our presentation, and we'll start with the submittal of the 2024 annual comprehensive financial report. And that is also known as the audit. So Yvette, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We recently completed our 2024 audit. McMahon and Associates finished that up and filed that for us. Tonight, Paul Bacchus from McMahon and Associates is online to present the audit to you. And then at the end, we will need just an approval to accept the audit. So thank you. And I'll turn it over to Paul.
All right. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you for allowing me to join remotely. I was on the road all this week, but my name is Paul Bacchus. I'm a CPA, a partner with McMahon Associates. We audit, I don't know, 40 different municipalities, including pretty much all the ones in Garfield and Pitkin counties and Eagle County, I guess. And as Yvette mentioned, I'm here to walk you through the financial statements. I'm gonna kind of be brief unless you want me to go into more detail. Please don't hesitate. But the first thing I kind of want to point out is what exactly we do when we do a financial statement audit. This is actually the town's audit work, and when we do planning, we're looking at things like internal controls for each department's staff and who does what, how money comes in, how many goes out, reading minutes, and analyzing budget actuals and prior year amounts. And so under each one of these tabs, there's work papers. Then when we do field work, like this is an example of cash and investments. Each of these is a work paper that details cash, and it helps verify that whatever you show in your financial statements is actually, in the bank and reconciled regularly, followed according to a reasonable, prudent investment policy, allowable by state statute, things like that. And so we go down the balance sheet and kind of verify each of those areas. And for Glenwood, it looks like we have scanned in 833 different work papers. We basically have a team of 5 CPAs that work with your staff. and we get all that data together. And the goal is to produce audited financial statements that are materially correct and can be relied upon by users of the financial statements. And so this is actually the city's financial statements. If you're not necessarily, or if you're new to municipal financial statements, they can be somewhat imposing. Yours are 170 pages long. It's $100 million organization, but the reason they're so long is each user has a different section of the financial statements. So, as an example, at the very end is section 8, and this is federal grants that you received last year, 4.4 million. So we have to have a section in here for federal grants. The state uses this department. So if you looked, you'd see the State Highway User Fund report where we're verifying numbers for the state, so you get your highway user fund money. There is a additional section that your finance team does, kind of a higher level of financial reporting called an ACFR. And that includes a lot of statistical information, which is really helpful to your bondholders and kind of bond rating analysis. And then there's just general financial information for other users, but banking relationships, federal government, bondholders, those are kind of the heavy users. I'll just mention that the audited financial statement is covered by independent auditor's report. This is us right here. And it would be referred to as a clean or an unmodified report. It means not only you, council, and the electorate, but all those parties that need this report can rely on it and know that, hey, we looked at 833 different items to make sure that the numbers in here are correct, and they can rely on them. And it's not it's not that we don't have maybe a typo or something, but the numbers are going to be materially correct, and there isn't going to be anything that would change their mind on the fiscal health of the city. There also is, so that is the audit report that we issue and kind of all the parties that go to it. There also is a board letter that goes along with it, and this is a governing board letter from us as independent auditors to you, the governing board. And it just briefly talks about various accounting policies and what has kind of changed. And so we did implement a new accounting standard that changed how we have to estimate the amount of accrued sick and vacation that gets booked on the city's financial statements as a liability. But honestly, I don't think it's kind of inside baseball. I don't think it's anything that would you'd probably find very interesting. What are the biggest estimates? There's some estimates in your financial statements, but quite honestly, they're not anything unusual for a government of your size. It's how long are your assets going to last, and are we recording the correct appreciation? Are you going to collect your receivables? We do have an allowance for doubtful account, things like that. The city staff really did a good job. I mean, I think you honestly have, I'm an auditor. I don't really say anything nice about anyone, but your finance staff really works hard to make sure that the numbers are correct. And so even though you've kind of had some turnover in the past, your finance team, certainly at the top, worked really hard to make sure this got done in time with requirements for all those parties that need it. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements is kind of what journal entries did we make. Now, keep in mind, it's a $100 million entity. So we had kind of three main ones. You'll see them there, but it would be kind of rare for us to not have journal entries when we're looking at items. You look at 833 different work papers and you're going to find a couple items. The good news is none of those are what we would consider material, and material is a mathematical calculation that says, would your opinion of the city's financial health change based upon these items. But these were adjusted and fixed for the audit report, so that's all good news. No disagreements with management. Your staff does sign a management representation letter that they have kind of provided us all the required items and answered our questions honestly. So we just have to inform you of that. And then there is a couple new accounting standards that are coming up for next year. I won't bore you with those, but we just want you to know that we stay on top of this, and we'll help the city kind of work through those this this coming year and make sure that you're compliant with these requirements. When people talk about generally accepted accounting principles, that's kind of what they're talking about. Is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board determines what generally accepted accounting principles are, and you have to implement any changes they say. There are also some recommendations that I would mention, and most of these, take these for what they're worth. When you send a team of CPAs out, we're going to meet with each of your departments, and we're going to look at things, and we'll have recommendations. So it's honestly, it would be rare for us to, in fact, I don't know that I've ever done a financial statement audit of your size where we didn't have recommendations. The first is really maybe some improved communication between the departments and the finance team on when grant dollars are going to come in. Last year, we did have some water and wastewater funds where the expenditure went out, and I think both your finance team and us as auditors weren't aware that there was going to be additional grant money coming in, and those came in 24. It's not a big deal. We have some revenue recorded in 24 versus 23, but we really want to match those up so that the grant revenue follows the same period as the expenditures. And we've talked with your finance team about that. The second item is landfill billing and accounts receivable. You do have some significant amounts owed at year end on the South Canyon landfill. And my understanding is you've kind of gone to new reporting software. You're working on collecting those. This is kind of the breakout of the delinquent ones of what period. So, but I think your staff is aware of that, and they're working on collecting those. And I think going to your new software is going to help make sure we collect some of those. The next one would be community center cash receipts. You had a lot of turnover kind of in key positions at the community center. And, usually when that happens, there can be breakdowns in internal controls. That was kind of the case here where some deposits weren't making it regularly to city finance. Now, ultimately, they did all make it, but we want to make sure that we have a system in place where, new people coming in, they know that, hey, these deposits have to be made timely and reconciled back against the receipt report from RecTrack. And then the last is also community center. There was some refunds, and I think this probably goes back to the turnover, where if they made an error entering a transaction, they would refund it and then ring in the new transaction. We really want them to not use the refund code. We want them to use the void code. And there's some specific reasons in your software for that. When you're voiding a transaction, it usually requires a second person to assist in making changes to that transaction. So we just wanted to make your comm center aware. And we kind of have a policy that if we find anything significant, if we find kind of anything, we bring it to council's attention. So, I'm guessing a lot of these have been remedied, but we want to make sure you guys are aware of kind of what your finance team is doing, what we're doing, and what some of your departments are doing. So that is either a quick or maybe painfully long review. I don't know, but I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you guys have.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for the information. Bring it back to council. Any questions at this point? Okay, we'll see none. That's great news. So everybody did their job. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Anybody from the public have any comments or questions on the audit? We'll see none. So I'll bring it back to us. I assume, or I think we're going to have to adopt this audit. Is that correct? Is that what I heard you say? Yes. So I'm entertaining a motion in the submittal of the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, also known as the audit.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I forgot to mention one thing, because I do think it's, you guys don't always probably see this, but we did submit your financial statements to a group called GFOA, Government Finance Officers of America. And they then go through and review the financial statements and see whether or not they kind of meet the highest level of financial reporting. And I just want to mention that the city did, you haven't received the 24 yet, that's under review right now, but for 23, you did receive the Certificate of Achievement in Excellence in Financial Reporting. So when you refer to Yvette and your finance team, you can refer to them as your award-winning finance team. So I just wanted
Okay.
to make sure everyone knew
Thank you
that.
for that add-on.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, back to us for the motion. Mayor Pro Tem Zelensky.
I would like to move that we adopt this audit report for 2024.
And Councillor Schmal.
A second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? See none, motion carries. Thank you. That was good. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for being here.
Take care.
Glad you didn't have to drive.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yvette, for the submittal. The award-winning Yvette, sorry. Okay, moving into Southbridge, and I have a feeling that'd be Ryan tonight. And we got a
Yes, good evening, Council. Ryan Gordon, your city engineer. I'm gonna pull up. Right. Okay. That'll be up there for a second, but I wanted to talk about a few things first before we look at that map. But that map is essentially the site layout or the area where Southbridge is for anybody who needs reminding of where we are. So certainly this is a conversation regarding the toll or no toll on the project. And September 18th, the council met and talked about it. Since then, staff has had multiple conversations with both CDOT and CDOT leadership, and then also FHWA, and FHWA is providing the grant. And we got some more definitive information on particularly the process and the timeline that FHWA would require us to move forward with the tolled option. And the reason why there's some additional analysis is the application for the grant that we provided did not consider a toll. This was something that we brought up afterwards. And so discussions with the current FHWA staff and then the administration, adding a toll at this point is viewed by FHWA as a fairly significant change, and therefore the initial application for the grant would be required to be reviewed and either approved or rejected by the Department of Transportation up in Washington, D.C. Kind of knowing where things are, they kind of estimated that's a several month type process. They would kick that back to us, assuming it's accepted that we can move forward with the toll. FHW would want us to go through a fairly lengthy review and environmental assessment update. Now, we've done a lot of these steps. Some of them are sound study, traffic reports. We did sort of a very high level cursory tolling option. But what FHW wants to see is, since this would be kicked back from the application, is a very thorough process. And the biggest part of that is the public meeting process. So typically what we've seen, in fact, the reevaluation for our current design, the non-tolled option, took about a year. So we would expect about the same duration for the tolled option. As I mentioned, a couple of the things was a tolling analysis. And again, we've done something like this already in-house to look at how much revenue we potentially would recoup from a toll, how it would be applied. But what FHW wants to see is a much more detailed analysis looking at the federal audit process for a toll and how we would use it for O&M on the bridge. That would have no schedule impact because we're doing that concurrently, but it's a step that we would need to accomplish. So it is now October 16th. We are federally mandated to have our project obligated, which means that it's out to bid 11 months ago. So if we look at multiple months for the revision of the application and possibly a year for the reeval, we've exceeded the time. We asked the question, hey, can't we just get an extension on this grant? And they said, in order to get extension on these federally mandated grants, require Congress to move the date. So take that as you will. It's hard to see that happening at this point. We, again, have had conversations with them on the non-tolling option. That has already gone through all the necessary reviews and processes. And so we would still be on that same agenda timeline to get the project built. So nominally going out to bid sometime in January, February of next year. And I know one of the big concerns is, without a toll, what does this look like? Is this a bypass? People flying down this road? So I just wanted to present, and up on the screen is some of our ideas that we have come up with for, let's say, traffic calming, traffic mitigation. So on the right-hand side of the screen is Highway 82, and of course, coming across the bridge. So we have opportunities of, again, I've said this before, is we can't control where people drive, the number of people, but we can control their manner and how they drive. So we are looking to implement multiple options to basically keep traffic calm. Slow speeds is really the key here for us. And so at Airport Center Road, we could have a three-way stopped intersection. The curve that we have designed, highlighted in that thick red line, is a 25-mile-an-hour curve. Again, a pretty tight curve that you have to have moderate speeds. Again, another three-way stopped controlled intersection. That's the one that goes down to the Boneyards or down to Grand River Construction, some other places, the Prim Ranch access. At the Coke Ovens, we have in here a raised pedestrian platform with rapid flash beacons, exactly what's at Sopris Elementary right now, or very similar to what's at on Midland Avenue. Again, as then we approach the Cardiff Glen neighborhood, there's a roundabout, again, that will act as a traffic calming measure. And then at Clark Street and Airport Road, we can have a three-way stopped intersection. So again, a few other things not shown here, but the speed limit would be 25 miles an hour. And similar to other areas in town, we would likely implement speed cameras, again, to help to enforce those speeds. Then obviously, as you get through, there's a roundabout and stuff down. So these are some of the things that we are looking at. Again, we think will help to control the speed. We don't have with this plan, and again, this is a toll within the project area, the federally defined project area. These are the measures that we look at to implement. And again, we're not going to simply build this and walk away. This is something that we're obviously going to be monitoring very closely. If we need to do more traffic mitigation, great, we'll do it, whether it's speed bumps, humps, dips, other items we'll look at doing. We've also had internal discussions on other mitigations, especially down Midland. Are there other things that need to happen? But to be quite frank, we just don't know exactly the impact. So we're going to be evolving and reacting to what's going on. So that kind of gives I think, a pretty blunt update on the process and the timelines. So again, our obligation date is September of next year. And so in order to meet that, it's going to be tight and, quite frankly, nearly impossible to do it with a toll to go through the federal process. So with that, brief introduction and summary from myself, but I'd like to field some questions and answer whatever I can to help inform you guys.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Back to council. Questions to staff? We'll start with Councillor Schmall.
So Ryan, it is clear that the definition of obligated is out to bid or under contract.
We think well, Carl, do you want to answer that? It's kind of been a moving target for us.
Yeah, I think the best I can tell you is that there are really two levels of obligation typically with a federal grant. The first is when you sign the grant contract with the granting entity, in this case, the federal government, DOT, and that would make it partially obligated. Fully obligated is when it's under contract and a third party is reliant on those funds.
In the first part, Councillor Schmall, talked with FHW, we would sign the grant agreement when we're ready to go to bid. So that would essentially, as Carl mentioned, generally transfer the money or get us under contract with the feds for the grant.
Okay, that's the overlap then for September of this coming year.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Schachter.
Ryan, we had some good information with the discussion with Shoshana Liu from Councillor Smith. I wonder if you might share your perspective of what your discussion with CDOT's been about the toll, no toll option and delaying the process, whether it was confirmed by CDOT as well.
Yeah, so, to start with, right, this is a Glenwood Springs project, and CDOT's role is fairly minimal. Obviously, we're impacting and making improvements to Highway 82, so they have an oversight role, excuse me. They're also helping to administer the grant, right? So this is a Glenwood project, and Director Liu and others at CDOT didn't really opine on a toll as good, bad, or indifferent. It's our decision. What Director Liu really emphasized was the process of getting things approved through FHWA. And that was really kind of critical to understand the time it takes to go through these various steps. I think one thing that was very instructive to myself was the time it takes to go from step one to step two, et cetera, the length of time, in considering the federal government short-staffed and whatnot, and the stack of approvals on people's desks. So that really hit home about how long it would take to get through these various processes. And again, she was very, very blunt of saying, you guys can move forward with the toll. CDOT doesn't really care what it is, but here's the process that you have to follow.
Thank you. Councillor Townsley.
Quick question for you, just because you brought it up. You could put speed cameras on there. Is this road going to be a Glenwood Springs road? It won't be like Grand Avenue where it's a CDOT road where we have no control over that, or less control over that?
Yeah.
Are we back like we are with Midland where we can do what we want there?
Sure. Yeah. So quick clarification. City's right of way is the entire road network on the west side of the river. So right now, even before this project, Airport Road, Airport Center Drive are the city's roads and right of way. So there are roads regardless. The portion that we are, let's say, acquiring is crossing the river and then connecting to the interstate, or our limits of our new right-of-way would be where the Rafter right-of-way and the Rio Grande Trail, that interface. So again, these are our roads, and when we take possession of that right-of-way, it will be ours as well, the bridge itself.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just an immediate thought of follow-up on that question. The city right-of-way extends to, as you described, including portions not inside the city limits?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. And if I understand right, your description of the timing difficulty and coming primarily from Federal Highway Administration describing their process and adding months to that. Federal Highway Administration has not actually said they do not want a toll, or they're opposed to a toll, or a toll would be in violation of some standard for this funding. They just say it's going to take a long time.
Well, there's certainly rules and regulations that that FHWA has out there that you must follow. And those are things like what the tolling money can be used for, some other of those legalities. But FHWA did not say you shall not do a toll. That is part of the process. And again, we're talking with our FHWA counterparts at sort of a local state level. These decisions will be made by someone in Washington, D.C. And so, again, that's a wild card that we don't know. But they're not saying you can't do it or you should do it. They said if you choose to do it, there's an evaluation process, and someone outside of the local district will make these decisions.
Thank you. If I'm remembering right from previous presentations, when we first learned about this idea from city engineering's research and kind of vision that a toll might be an important mitigation measure, I seem to remember you telling us that to get a toll into the mix ever, it needed to be evaluated at this stage. Is that still the case? Asked differently, can a toll be evaluated through all this long process after the grant has been awarded?
So the first answer is I would say pretty conclusively yes. If we want a toll within the federally funded project area, it needs to be evaluated. Now, when asked that question to FHWA, if in say 10 years we wanted a toll on the bridge itself, could we go back and evaluate it? They were pretty skeptical that that's a route to do it. But the reason why it needs to be included now in part of the evaluation process is the EA document that's attached to the project. Now, I'm not saying that we couldn't probably retroactively and go back, or not retroactively, but in the future, evaluate this to have it. But it's something I don't think that they were interested in doing and haven't seen done. So again, if we want a toll within the project boundaries, now is the time to evaluate it. And again, back to the delay or back to step one in the EA process of fully analyzing and vetting the toll.
And so asked differently, kind of the same question, but asked a little bit differently. A second imagined opportunity to do that evaluation for a project at the bridge that is within what's now called the project area. That limitation is forever or until an EA was revisited, or?
So generally speaking, we've had this conversation. I'm probably going to screw this up, so Carl will step in. But there is let's say a sunset of the federal requirements. And generally speaking, my understanding is that is the useful life of the asset. So I think the bridge is, I don't know the answer. Let's say it's 30 years. We hope that the bridge actually has a much longer lifespan than that. Let's be quite honest with that. But there's some provision that says after this, you are done. The alternative is we could say, we're going to put a toll on it. The federal government could say, that's great. Your bill is the grant money. Pay that back, please. So, Carl, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most common thing we see is that, you usually see grant conditions that are attached to the useful life of the asset. And so I don't know exactly what that would be in this case. I've fortunately never run into a situation where we're trying to repay grant funds for, because we changed the use of the asset or something along the way, but that's typically the requirement.
Oh yeah, that's impossible for me to imagine pulling a stunt like that later.
Yeah.
Answer my question, clear enough. There has been talk, kind of just more conversational talk around community, but also more explicit talk in the interview I had with CDOT Director Lou about the idea of employing a toll, I think to use the right terminology, outside the project area, that is on a different city street. it was actually a suggestion she offered, and it's one that our staff has discussed. Have you given any more thought to the functionality of that or the location of that or whether that can even work?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely discussed a toll outside of this project area and where it could go. Does it go, someplace more in Glenwood? Does it go more than South Glenwood? So there's definitely ideas that we've kicked around the functionality and what our desire of a toll is. So it's definitely something that we've kicked around, that we haven't progressed more than some thoughts and some ideas of its intended purpose. But it's something that we've looked at, and something that we're certainly willing to consider as we move forward here.
I think this is my last question that I can think of now. I may think of more when I hear other people's questions. It might prompt some follow-ups, but when the community and this city leadership and others over the last year or so since this tolling idea came up, the new designs for the redesign, peer review, the cost savings measures, all of that was going on simultaneously or overlapping with that. And the mitigation measures that you described earlier in your presentation tonight were in there. And yet there seemed to be some appeal to add to those measures a toll. Can you even generally quantify the difference in the mitigation effect using the ones you described tonight without a toll versus what you were imagining when you thought you had a toll in your toolkit?
I really, I don't think there's a quantifiable number to tell you the percentages or a guess. And the reason why is even with the toll option, we haven't figured out what, say, the cost to cross the bridge or pay the toll would be. When you increase that toll, you may or may not divert more traffic or less traffic onto the South Bridge, right? So from a traffic mitigation perspective, it's pretty difficult. And again, the mitigation items that were on the screen, we don't know what effect that will be.
Sure.
Human behavior is what it is. And again, we could have a $50 toll on the bridge and people want to pay it. We may have all this stuff and no one wants to drive through stop signs. So it's hard to really quantify. I think, the lever to pull on the toll would be to have that variable pricing. So again, without actually seeing real numbers and seeing how traffic functions, it's really just conjecture on the effects of any of these measures.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schechter.
Thank you, Ryan. Maybe either you or Carl may have this. I have two questions right now. One, after I dug in deeper and was referred to, I think, what is it, Regulation 179 or 120, whatever it is. I'm not used to reading federal regulations. One thing struck me, maybe you can confirm. I was very surprised in my naivete that an EA would be required because I thought that just had to do with the physical aspect of the road. And then I'm starting to read about discrimination impacts and social impacts. And one of the things I thought I came across was it is either extremely difficult or almost impossible to do a discriminatory toll that says residents pay zero or nothing or less and non-residents pay more. Can either of you confirm, did I imagine that? Or is that seemed to be one of the EA criteria?
Yeah, I think that, so from the federal standpoint, they don't really think about corporate boundaries the way we do, right? So I think that's really what that regulation is speaking to, is that it is thinking much more broadly. And by way of example, we run into the same issue when we're dealing with federal funding for housing and we're trying to impose local conditions. And you remember all the discussions we had around that. It's a very similar situation that from a federal perspective, they are looking at the world a little differently and tend to break it up demographically rather than geographically, if you will.
Okay. And
I'd follow up with that, Councilor Schechter, that the technology employed for the toll is a license plate reader, right? So it looks at your license plate and that correlates your license plate to where you live. In talking to several of the companies that offer this technology, some that are actually doing this work currently on the Front Range and E470, they are able to geofence specific locations. Again, tied to your license plate, but they have specific areas on E470 that are allowed to use E470 without paying a toll. So perhaps some of the information that you're reading, or perhaps the actual code language, I think it's 129, but that's irrelevant. Maybe it's a little bit outdated. This technology is relatively new in this usage. You know, I would say 5-7 years old. We had a tolling memo done as part of this project about 8 years ago. And that considered the gantry arms, right? And the RFID chips, right? And there it was, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement this because it's giant stuff. Well, technology has changed so rapidly. So I would say it is likely and more than likely that we can discriminate between different populations for the toll.
And to follow up on that, I think that that's part of that EA process, is identifying those groups who you should be doing, you know, like how big is that scope? Those are some of those things that just in scoping for this particular piece of an EA update, I think scoping would be incredibly important. If you've been through an EA, you know, kind of what you scope out is really sets the parameters in for what the study looks like post scope.
But all that would be part of a new EA or an amended EA.
That would be all part of amending the EA. And so that's where I think we would be able to dig in and define those areas or not.
Second question, and again, I only had a vague impression, even though we're home rule and we're outside the project area. Am I correct that our desire to toll is still subject to some CDOT oversight of some kind?
I saw that comment someplace, and I can't remember who made the comment. It was during maybe the conversation with Director Liu. I would respectfully disagree with that assessment.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time digging through state statutes, CDOT regulations. Now, if CDOT wants to pay for the project and make it part of the state highway system, yeah, then they'd be in control of that. But you know, this is a local city street subject to the full authority of the city as a home rule municipality with full police powers. And I really am unable to find any authority that would lead me to believe that CDOT can tell us on our city streets outside of project boundaries whether or not we implement a toll, any more than they can tell us if we're going to set the speed limit at 25 or charge for an overweight permit or anything else that we do on our city streets, frankly.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Schmal.
The scoping that you're just talking about is part of the source of my next question. Is that it seems to me that an awful lot of what would be required in the EA for tolling is already done. We have items of conjecture in the EA now. They're educated guesses. We can make the same educated guesses about tolling, and maybe they're very similar numbers, and the work is already done. So I guess I'm still optimistic that there's some chance that we could get approval before the grant deadline. It's optimistic, but I think it's possible with some positive encouragement from our federal officials. What I am confident of is that tolling afterwards is going to be way more difficult. And the EA logic behind that for the feds is that once you've given somebody something for free, you can't start charging them for it later. That's discriminatory, and it gets all kinds of their constituents angry. But if it's tolling to begin with, we're not taking anything away. So it's a different consideration from what I read in their criteria.
Thank you. Any other questions to staff? See none. Thank you, Ryan. Public comment. Anybody from the public like to come forward? I have 4 names here. Maybe there'll be more. I don't know. Let's start with Leo McKinney. Please state your name and whether you live in city limits or not.
Hi, guys. Again, it's Leo McKinney. I live in the city limits. First of all, I just want to say thank you for doing your job. Besides a few other people in this room, I know better what your job is like. You know, I was sitting there as long as I did. Some issues are not easy, some issues are. This one I think should be easy. If I were to ask this whole room, is your job to be fiscally responsible? My guess is everybody would raise their hands. If I were to ask this room if your job was to work towards the best public safety infrastructure that we have, my guess is everybody would raise their hand. So let's focus on the fiscal part. You guys had a great financial audit. That was a good timing. You know, congratulations to the finance department. That's all good stuff. If you're fiscally responsible, then you should be looking at this as an opportunity that we will not get again. If you're fiscally responsible, you know that these are tax dollars that we pay into the federal government. For every dollar that we pay the federal government, we get 70 cents back. So are we winning or are we losing there? We're losing. So every opportunity you get to bring huge grant monies from the federal government to the city of Glenwood Springs to make our streets safe or to make public safety a priority, you got to be taking that opportunity. I think we've heard a lot of well-intended arguments on the toll system. And I understand where that came from, but it doesn't seem to really fit within timelines and the parameters around this. So I'd urge you to do the fiscally responsible thing. And incidentally, it's the fiscally conservative thing to do. You want to get back more money you want to get back as much money as we give to the federal government. And that's the right thing to do. So please, I urge you to really consider dropping this toll idea for now, exploring what it would look like outside of the project area, and move forward with this. This has been going on for the better part of 30 years. Before I sat up there where you guys sit now, this was an issue. So at this point, if you really want to pursue that, knowing the consequences, I would just ask that you just say, hey, I don't want Southbridge, and just own it. And I don't mean to be combative or anything like that, but that's the state of it. So anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. Matt Spidell. Please also state your name and whether you live in city limits, and I neglected to say you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so
It
I'll
goes
keep
for
it
everyone.
quick. I'm usually too quick, so ask me questions. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Matt Spidell. I live in city limits near 27th Roundabout, and I've thought about this long and hard for the last few years. Like, traffic is a huge issue here. I see it every morning and every night. Midland, those same cars that are going to go on that section of Southbridge, which I support. I think we need a plan for the future. I think we did not plan for the future 30, 40 years ago when everyone said we needed to have some improvements and we didn't do it. I agree with the first speaker. I think we need a toll of some sort, and I do believe that technology exists. Jacob, in your own department, city planning, can tell me what employees come to my and what visitors come. It's very detailed information. I support the toll from 8th to 27th or somewhere else where we can control. And I totally agree. Don't lose this money. Plan for the future while we have the opportunity to plan for the future. And let's make something happen in a good planning and do it in a correct way. That's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Ingrid Russo. Well, you put your name on it, you're gonna do it. You put your name on it. Okay. Name and whether you live in city limits.
Ingrid Russo, city limits of Glenwood Springs.
Thank you.
There's so many people here tonight that I just so adore. Thank you all so much for showing up and being part of city government. I think first and foremost, thank you for serving. You all look a little tired, and I remember that. I remember how tired I was because these are hard and big decisions. I think that I wouldn't be here tonight. Truthfully, I took Spanish, conversational Spanish on Thursday nights for a little while after city council to like keep the vibe of being gone on Thursday night. But that's because I trusted you guys to make good decisions. I trusted you to take 30 years of foundational history where engineers that I trust with my heart and community members who said, community members who said, we are willing to dig into this and come up with 30 different solutions and dial it down to one solution for where Southbridge should be located. And saying, this is worth it. And then we invested year after year after year. We went to DC and we asked our congressional delegates, you guys, we need this. We need this for the community. We need this for the valley. We need this for ingress and egress. We also need it for fire and safety. We need it for so many reasons. And this is where my mom voice steps in. And then you guys stepped up to serve. And I'm a little disappointed. I was disappointed I had to come tonight. I was disappointed that you guys didn't just look at the history of where we've been and where we are and what we have. We have this huge chunk of money that this type of money doesn't come to small communities like ours. It means that we all worked hard, that we had a narrative that was justified, that we kept staying the course. Don Vanderhoof, do y'all want to know the history of how I'm related? It's kind of through marriage, a little bit. My mom's first cousin, Rip, was married to Eddie.
Ingrid, even you only have 3 minutes. Just saying.
There, I'm getting there. I get like 10 more seconds because of that. All I'm saying is for 30 years, we've worked on this. For 30 years, we have been problem solvers. We have been, as a city council, we've been 30,000 feet. And now it feels like you guys are getting stuck in the weeds. You are so low down there. Solve this problem for the community members, for the valley. I'll work hard to get the money from wherever. I don't want Marco to have to tell me to stop talking. I know that we can come up with a solution, but you guys cannot lose this opportunity this evening. So do what's right for the community. Death by 1,000 cuts or one bite of an elephant at a time. I did it.
Thank you, Ingrid. Andy Mueller. Please state your name and not address, but whether you live in city limits or not.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Andy Mueller and I do live within the city limits. I just want to suggest, I don't live in the area that would be served by Southbridge, but I think that it would be a huge mistake to pass up the opportunity to put this in. We have members of our city community, members of our county community, whose lives are frankly at risk because we have allowed development, not the city, but the county up 4 Mile Road. To not move forward with this would be a huge mistake. As Ingrid put well, the city's done lots of work on this. We've worked on this very hard. To tie this up into a decision on no toll versus toll is a huge mistake. Please move forward. You've got federal money. You can find the other money. Let's get this done. Let's create the infrastructure that our community needs. Let's do it right. Let's get it in place. If you really want to go back and visit whether or not you toll a city street upstream from here, or actually technically downstream, go ahead and do that later. But get this done and get it done now and quit screwing around. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that concludes the list, but is there anybody else that would like to come forward? Okay, hang on. Yeah. Yes, Mike, please. Name and whether you live in city limits or not, please.
Mike Mercatoris. I do not live in city limits. I do serve on the chamber board. I do serve on the tourism board. I've owned restaurants here for 25 years, employed a lot of your kids. I'm just here to reiterate, I was here last time to talk about this issue. I'm in agreement with the people who have spoke. It obviously speaks volumes when you got 3 former mayors sitting in a row here to come and, lend their credence to this issue. Yeah, I think to me, it seems pretty simple. You know, it's, you guys have done the legwork, the money's mostly there. We can find the rest of the money. If it comes down to a toll thing, I'm all about making money. If it's a money raising thing, you need the toll to make the money. That's one thing. Doesn't sound like it. Sounds like it's a traffic calming issue. We had presentations on how traffic can be calmed in other ways. Maybe we can put it off the bridge. Maybe we can do it in other places. I can speak, you know, I work with Jacob Zook, and yeah, we can track in where you're going and how much you're spending and how long you spend at a place. So there's ways to do that. The technology exists to not put it on the bridge and not send this back for review and waste all that time and risk losing that $50 million. It's a big risk, and I don't think it's worth it for our community. So thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Let's do you next and then finish up. Please state your name and whether you live in city limits.
Hello, my name is Eric Cousteau. I live in the city limits in the Park East neighborhood of Glenwood. The discussion tonight has really been focused on traffic mitigation, which I think is a hugely valid concern for residents. And the toll is really just a tool, and defer to others if it's the best tool, but it's a tool to achieve the objectives that we're talking about. And you all are considering the merits. When I talk to my neighbors in South Glenwood about South Bridge, it's not about saving 10 minutes to go up Valley. It's about not being the next Lahaina in Maui, or Palisade in LA, or the Marshall Fire in Boulder, or the Camp Fire that destroyed Paradise. And I feel like we're on borrowed time. And what a tragedy to have South Bridge planned and funded only to get delayed or canceled due to a red herring about which traffic mitigation is best. So I ask you, please do not let tonight's vote be a vote to kill South Bridge. Find a solution to address resident concerns about traffic, but let's get this done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And please. Also name your, please state your name and whether you live in city limit.
Hello, my name is Keith Ellers. I do not live in the city limits, but I don't live in the city limits because I was one that got pushed down Valley, right? I have family here in Glenwood. I grew up here in Glenwood, but we've been pushed down Valley for that pursuit of home ownership. And I know there's been a lot of conversations about traffic. There's been a lot of conversations about safety, and boy, are those valid. I'm here tonight to beg you to not let this project get stalled out or risk it in any case. And I want to say it from the perspective of housing, and in particular, housing ownership. It's been great what we've been able to do to increase some housing opportunities and for rent in the attainable realm and whatnot, but ownership for housing is still a big problem. And I know it may not be a hugely popular thing to talk about adding development and adding houses, but we did just finish a comp plan adjustment and review. It did include properties that would be affected by this project to allow additional housing in a safe, organized, and modern way that might even allow, not might, will allow folks like me to be able to have a shot at attainable housing. And I say will so confidently because I'm familiar with some of those properties and through those relationships, fortunately, of still having family here and have lived here before. I'm actually here on behalf in some ways of some of those properties up there who weren't able to be here because they can develop. They do have interests in housing for ownership that is attainable. And without this project, all of the traffic safety issues come into play, and it's not possible. With this project, it is. And that's not just a carte blanche, get the project done and it opens the door to development. Of course, there's all the regulations that have been put in place. So not only do I want to speak to the decades of effort on getting this project done, but just here recently, we've updated comp plans. We're looking at what the housing needs are. And ownership and attainable ownership is one of those things. So I don't want to let that completely dismiss the comments about traffic. Look, I come into town and I might call some buddies in South Glenwood and say, hey, you want to catch up for dinner? But if it's the wrong time of night for the traffic, we can't even connect for dinner. We can't go to the retail stores. We can't do anything like that. So all of those comments are so very valid. Please don't lose this project over the tolling scenario, or quite frankly, over any other nuance. This is important to housing. This is important to families. This is important to employees. And it's important to match up with the investments in not only our policies, but all of the work that's been done before. So thank you for your time and listening.
All right, thank you very much for that point of view. Anybody else? Two more, please. Yes, ma'am. Actually, that's fine. That's fine. No worries.
Say black coat, but you both.
Yeah, no. Hat. There you go.
Yeah.
Please
I
state
apologize.
state your name
That
and
it
whether you
was
live in city limits. Please.
But I don't have any prepared comments. My husband sent a letter.
Please state your name and whether you live in city
Yes.
limits or not.
My name is Tiffany Rudo. I own a small business and I live within the city limits and I work in the city limits. My business is here. There's so many things I could say about what I've seen over the last 26 years living in Glenwood. The one that I see causing stress for my clientele, for my employees, and for my family is the traffic. That's one of the number one things. My husband works in Basalt, commutes. We've done everything we can to increase that commute. He drives an EV vehicle. He takes public transportation when he can. When he can, do remote login, he does that. Unfortunately, his job requires him to be on site a lot in the backcountry. Last night it took him an hour and a half to get home from Basalt. He left at 4:45. That's a common occurrence that seems to be happening more and more. And this mental strain that I see on him and my employees is a lot, and it needs to be addressed. As far as the South Bridge goes, everyone I talk to in my little corner in Glenwood Park is going, why hasn't this been done already? We need emergency services access. We need to not worry about if there's another fire at 4 Mile, how we're getting out because the traffic's so bad. So to me, that's a no-brainer. You've got the money, you've got the plan, take action. As far as the toll goes, I actually talked to someone in this room about this about 10 years ago. Like, why don't they put a toll between the Sunlight Bridge and the 7th Street Bridge? I would not let that trip you up. However, I do feel like it is going to be tabled and you will not visit it again. And I say that because I know how committees work. I work with a few boards in this valley, and I know that once that big project is we're done with that, it's hard to get back to that topic again. And I do think a toll will push a lot of the commuters that are just zipping through town. We've all seen the traffic accidents, one right by the high school when kids were at lunch crossing that street. We know what happens. It's not going to be long before somebody's hit. And we know that a toll will push some off onto Grant. We also know that the people that live in South Glenwood and live up 4 Mile would have a lot easier access for emergency services, but also just for peace of mind to travel home at night. I make decisions about what my kids participate in based on whether I can get them there within 20 minutes. I mean, and it's sad to say that, but when I have to go 3 miles across town just to get them downtown, and it takes me 30 minutes, I start to question whether this is worth it at 6 o'clock at night. So I would just encourage you to listen to your community. We want you to pass the bridge. I would encourage you to pass the toll and get her done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Please. Please state your name and whether you live in city limits or not.
Hi, my name's Renee McCullough. I live in the city. I live on Mount Cypress Drive, right across the street from Cypress Elementary School. So I've seen the results of several fires. There was that one that was right up the hill, and I remember that Cypress Elementary, they had to actually escort the kids down over to that little parking lot by where you access the whatever that, the river. And it was just like scary. And that whole, when you see all those clouds up there, and I'm not talking about clouds, I'm talking about clouds of fire. And, you don't know how and when you're going to be able to get out. And then of course, in 2005, when the 4 Mile road was closed off and there's, National Guard there protecting, everything. And my neighbor next door to me is coming over to my house and, she was a former student and she's, going through my house trying to help me take pictures off the wall and loading it up in the old van I had. Anyway, it's very scary. So since I've lived here in Glenwood Springs in the same house for 37 years, I'm very much in favor. I don't care if it's a toll. I don't care if it's not a toll. I just would, I don't know how long we've been talking about a South Bridge, and I'm in favor of a South Bridge. Get it done. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room? I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
Please state your name and whether.
Jonathan Godis, 1071 Park West Drive, that's South Glenwood. Counselor Small, thank you very much for meeting with me the other day. I appreciated our time together. I did want to address one of your comments, though. I think you have an unfounded optimism that the federal government, when the FHWA and our staff is telling you that this can't happen, I would say listen to your staff. Listen to the FHWA when they're telling you this. We can toll. We're talking about a toll here tonight. That's the topic we're talking about. And as our legal counsel, as your legal counsel told you, you can toll any city street. Why don't we put a toll on 8th and Midland or exit 114? Why does Marco and Dave's neighborhood, the Red Mountain neighborhood, have to get all that cut through traffic on Riverside Drive? We can do different things now that we have this technology. I'd really encourage you to look at those technologies and see how that could be applied holistically to our community. We have the ability to fund this. We have a $30 million in bonding authority from the 2016 A&I tax. We have $13 million of that is committed as our match for the $15 million. That leaves $17 million left of that bonding authority that specifically called out Southbridge as a project that was supposed to be done. We have $17 million left to accomplish a $6 million funding gap. If the bridge project is $75 million, we have $6 million left. We have enough money to do this. We have the support of the people in this room. We have the support of the people online, which we'll get to here shortly. We have the support a month ago of another dozen people. I think out of the, probably 25 and counting comments, we had one person who came and showed up who said they did not support it. We have support of Newcastle, Carbondale, Basalt, Aspen, Pickens County, and Eagle County via their participation and their contribution through RAFTA. We have the state support. We have the federal support, obviously. Please don't get caught up because Fred Jarman doesn't want this project to go forward. I agree with former Mayor McKinney when he asked for a clean vote on this bridge. I think that this is a proxy vote that some people are saying, well, maybe I want the bridge, maybe I don't. You have the ability to control traffic flow in numerous other ways. And I think if you take a vote tonight to put a toll specifically on this project area, when you know that you can control these factors in other ways, it's a vote to kill the bridge project. And I'll know that, the people in this room will know that, and the community will know that. So we look forward to seeing that vote, and we look forward to your support on this project that myself, my neighbors, and the community has been going for 30 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else in this room would like to comment? I see none. I see a couple of hands raised online, and since this is a full-blown application and a discussion and action, I will allow online comment, and we're going to start with Mark Kirch, please. I think you're muted.
There
you go.
Okay. Hi, my name's Mark Kirch. I live in Glenwood Park, and I'd like to thank everyone on the council for serving our community. Regarding the idea of tolling the bridge, in a vacuum, great idea. Lots of opportunity there. But the reality is it's just too risky. Just imagine sitting in this room a year from now and having pursued the toll and having had the project become bogged down in the EA, in all of the hornet's nest that could be stirred up by it. How would you feel having lost the grant and lost the opportunity for this project. If I were in your shoes, that's not a risk I would want to take. Our community needs this project. South Glenwood desperately needs this project, and please don't get bogged down by this toll. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mark, for showing up tonight. And next one is Mark Gould. You're also, there you go.
Mr. Mayor and Council, you heard from me a month ago, so I'm not going to repeat myself. I would say that the idea of a toll, it is in itself not a bad idea, but risking $49 million is a bad idea. So the other thing to think about is that if the bridge works as it's supposed to work, the people in South Glenwood will use the bridge. People up 4 Mile will use the bridge, and it will mean that there's more availability for traffic at 27th Street Bridge to go north on Midland Avenue. So the perfect location for a toll, if this council so chose to have a toll, would be at the 27th Street roundabout on the north side. And the reason for that is because then all the people coming off of 27th, going down, getting through town a little easier because of the people that are getting off on the bridge to go to South Glenwood and to 4 Mile would get there easier, and you would capture them, because one of what I've heard over the last month is one of your goals is to make sure you don't impact Midland Avenue, and not impacting Midland Avenue would mean that you would need the toll at 27th, not at the bridge. So I encourage you tonight to take advantage of the $49 million from the federal government and move this project forward. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. Anybody else online? Okay, we'll see none. Nobody else in the room showed up. Okay, great. I'll close the public portion for this hearing. Bring it back to council and entertaining a motion. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Okay, hang tight for a second. Mute microphone, please. Councilor Schachter, point of order.
Just procedurally, please, we had a motion that was approved, and then a motion not to reverse it, but to reconsider.
Yes.
So what are the steps in terms of if we want to reverse that prior motion or make a new one that negates it? What happens?
I think either one of those. I mean, really, at this point, you're reconsidering the former decision. I would kind of, we're not super formal with Robert's rules, but use them as guidance. I would look at any motion as either modifying that prior decision or overturning it or changing it or whatever. I think you're really at the point of crafting something new if you want to, or the motion might be to, stick with the prior motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, please.
So I would like to make a motion that this council reconsider the former vote to proceed with the toll in place.
Toll in place?
I would like to reconsider the decision, the former decision. So we've made a decision to do that, and I'm asking that this council reconsider.
I think that's, if I may point of order, I think that's where you're at. I think the motion would be either to toll or no toll.
To revote, yeah.
Well, I think you're already there. That was the motion at the last meeting.
Then I'm gonna vote that we don't proceed with a toll.
There you go.
Yeah, I didn't know if I had to reverse the first one
No,
before we could go forward with the second
Simple
one.
motion to do.
Yeah, so then let me start over. I would like to make a motion that we proceed without the toll in place.
Thank you. And Councilor Weimer.
I will second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second. I think the reconsideration was a little bit confusing, so
Totally.
sorry to interrupt you. But it is clear now that we have a motion and a second to move forward without the toll. Any discussion? We'll start with Councilor Schachter.
Well, thank you. I wanted to mention a couple things. First of all, I'll reiterate what I said at the last meeting. My vote on the prior motion was not an intent to stop this project. Future information, subsequent information has led me to believe that if not de facto, that's what we would be doing. And I'm not willing to take some chance that all this work would go forward. I would add to that, that I don't consider my support of the motion tonight to be a total green light that this bridge is going to happen. There's still factors that this council will have to consider. Do we really have the grant? Do we have adequate funding either from reserve, from A&I? Are we willing to bond if we need to? Do we have adequate partnership there? And what the bids will be. There are still further things to consider, and I want that ability to consider those factors. Whether I like the bridge or not may not be important. As said, there has been adequate support over the years that I have to decide, as the community seems to have decided, that this is in the best interest of Glenwood. But I can't make that decision if this stops today. The only other thing I would add, in spite of some of the public comment, I probably am not supporting this bridge to enhance more development in the county. That's not my goal. And I don't believe that this is going to solve 82 problems for people passing up and down Valley to any significant amount, but it will increase safety and it will help some of our residents, particularly in the south part. So for that reason, and for the information that I got subsequent to the prior meeting, I would support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Schmal.
Despite the emotional involvement over the 20 years that everybody has put into this in the effort to mitigate fire egress, is where it all started. The technologies available for monitoring, predicting, pre-planning for fire have improved drastically from what we had when we had the fire that caused the problem. So from my perspective, the salient issues on this bridge is it a fire egress or is it a bypass? My answer from my analysis is that the fire egress isn't nearly as critical as it was 25 years ago. And so it's a bypass. Although it's not been treated as a bypass, that's what we're building, is a bypass through Glenwood. Now the city's going to have about $25 million in this bridge between the commitments and making up the shortfall right now in the funding at whatever it was, $75,000 per million per year. That's going to nearly wipe out our bonding capacity and cost another $2 million a year for 20, 30 years, right? If it's a toll bridge, even if we lose the grant, the tolls can generate the revenue to pay for this bridge. So in my opinion, the toll bridge is the way to make sure that this bridge gets built and that it funds itself. And so I do not support going forward without tolls. Imposing tolls after the bridge is built is going to be really difficult. The feds frown seriously on taking something away that people have had for free. A new toll on a new bridge, they're not going to frown on that. I'm willing to risk losing that grant and relying on tolls to fund this bridge.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
I just respectfully disagree with the idea that even a toll could fund this bridge. I think that we have a responsibility to the community, a fiduciary responsibility to the community to use this grant money and at least take it to bid. I think anything that we do tonight that puts that potential at risk is doing a disservice and not doing our job. And so I really encourage us all to let this go forward, take it to bid, and see what comes next.
Thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you. I think Mr. Roberts would call this a point of clarification.
He's not here.
If I wrote down correctly, the motion at hand is to proceed without toll.
On the bridge.
That wasn't in the motion. Could the mover and second be a little bit more elaborate about proceeding with what?
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
So this discussion tonight is not about potential future tolls at other places. The only place that this matters is on this project. And that's what we're discussing, is clarification on the South Bridge project and whether or not we're including a toll in that project.
If I may, Mayor Pro Tem, you mean a toll inside the project boundaries as
That's-
described by the engineer?
I think that's all we're talking about.
Yes.
You're right.
And that's all your motions.
That's all my motion includes. So I don't know if I need to add more words to my motion, but that's where we're at.
Thank you. Counselor Townsley.
Thanks. A couple things. Counselor Shackner and Counselor Small, I think you've both brought up some good points that I think are worth looking at. Everybody said we have the money for this. It's all set aside. It's all done. If somebody has a line of credit on their house, that's a huge line of credit. It doesn't necessarily mean they can afford the debt that's on there. So I think we should keep that in mind too, as we look at this, is that a line of credit, borrowing money doesn't necessarily mean, oh, it's all paid for and taken care of. So I think what Counselor Small brought up, that, this is going to be a large chunk of money for a lot of years, needs to be looked at pretty carefully. I also think I've come to the realization that the toll is probably gone. I mean, that's just not gonna, I think we're hearing that from enough people here that if we do that, it's probably going to kill the project. So I think I could support, at least moving forward, like Counselor Shackner said, and finding out where are we in this project? I don't support it for continued growth up 4 Mile and housing. That would not be a reason that I would support it. But I think to not find out what our costs are and find out where we are in this would not be a good thing. So for those reasons, I would support the motion as it's made.
Thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you. And thank you again to the counselors who moved and seconded the motion for that extra clarification. I asked that in the context of Counselor Schachter's observation of at least what one member thought he was voting on and not voting on. I just wanted to be sure we're all voting on the same thing. So appreciate that. June 30th of this year, city staff convened a well-advertised, very well-attended public workshop about the South Bridge at Sopris Elementary School. Interest was high. 165 people showed up, 150 of those from the ward where I represent in Southwest Glenwood Springs. The meeting had a robust discussion with lots of different points of view, many kind of inconsistent, some consistent, but a real mix of genuine interest and people trying to use their imaginations and following the leadership of city staff who managed the meeting very adroitly and very respectfully. The people at that meeting, by my listening to speakers and watching corresponding head nods and that kind of crowd watching, the people at that meeting were evenly split between supporting the bridge and opposing the bridge. More than half of those who expressed support for the bridge also expressed fear of having their neighborhoods disrupted with significant traffic increases, whereas all of those who, I conjecture, all of those who were opposed to the bridge really were opposed to significant increases in traffic and congestion and danger in their neighborhood. The bridge kind of has been a symbol but the conversations really all along have been about safety, primarily emergency access and emergency response and emergency evacuation as one package of issue. And second, about taking care of the neighborhoods where people already live, being sure that you don't harm what people already have in the name of protection against something that we fear. Those two principles is where I've tried to focus. Often for shorthand, we talk about the bridge as shorthand for safety. And recently we've talked about the toll as shorthand for preserving neighborhoods. Neither is quite right, but the two principles remain, that those are the two things that I think a majority of people, perhaps in Glenwood Springs, but certainly in that portion of Glenwood Springs want. They want both. You can use concepts of cake and eat it too, inconsistent requests or whatever. It's a tough combination to meet both of those things, but that's, I think, where we need to go, is to find ways to meet both of those desires, both of those visions, safety and taking care of emergency safety and taking care of convenience, safety, home living, daily life, day to day. One of the reasons, there's several reasons to me to have supported the toll or measures like it that significantly address the hazard that excess traffic would present if this becomes what we're again calling for shorthand, a bypass. One of those was belief in the city's professional staff. For a year, our city's professional staff has talked about a variety of mitigation measures that would address that second concern while building a bridge, while addressing the emergency concern. In one of those that really got a spotlight from our city's staff's expertise and really correspondingly attracted the attention of people concerned about both these topics was a toll. City staff reported to us that they were getting affirmation, getting encouragement from state and federal officials that this could work, it could have a positive effect in the way that we want it to have, and that it could be incorporated into the project. Elections have effects. There was an election. The state federal administration has changed in personnel, changed in tone, changed in priorities. My belief in city staff and wanting to have supported this toll concept because they told me it was a good idea now is tempered by the same city staff saying, well, things have changed. The world is a little different. The complications for this particular tool make it more difficult. If not in itself, the toll can be analyzed and can be implemented, we understand, with relative technological ease, but the complication comes in what it does to the other side of the equation. That is that safety measure, which now we're focused on the bridge as a means of providing. The bridge probably is a really effective way of providing that safety response, that emergency response. It's certainly the one that's had a lot of effort and money invested. So it's the one at hand to address that first one. Now we need to be sure that we're simultaneously addressing the second one. The conversation tonight and at other times about saying, well, we'll look at that later is kind of the crux between the two that hangs me up. That we really got to get the money now. We really got the bridge, build the bridge now. And then we'll kind of think about what to do about what happened to the neighborhoods as a result. I just think we have to make a simultaneous commitment to both approaches. To that end, I'll propose an amendment to the motion at hand. I have drafted language that I'm happy to pass down for the members to consider. as a starting point for what do I hope will be a conversation that takes us into this two-realm approach, bridge plus neighborhood respect, neighborhood protection, neighborhood honoring. My amendment would read in the draft form, I don't know whether I say provided or if I say further, but one or the other. City of Glenwood Springs also commits to analyzing and implementing locally controlled traffic management techniques, policies, and structures, including local tolling options, in time for implementation upon opening of a new South Bridge, in order to maintain peak hours traffic volumes on affected local streets at or below a level 50% above 2025 volumes, and accomplish that by the year 2045. Got 20 years to pull this off under this suggestion. I'm happy to share these so you can mark them up if you will, at least take a look at it. One for the clerk, to see if this can give us the idealized package where all of us up here can find comfort in supporting the movement on the federal grant while simultaneously taking care of our neighbors. Happy to discuss details and hear from other council members. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem,
You have to respond to the amendment now.
you should.
Yeah.
I don't really want to do that right now, so I'm gonna decline at this time. It is my intent tonight to allow staff to move forward to get this to a place where we can bid. This tolling option was not raised by staff. It was raised by a fellow counselor. It was an interesting concept. We got hung up on it. I have been told by another friend of mine who's got a lot more experience with grant applications than I do, that this represents a significant change to that application. I don't know that this is purely based on current administration or if this is just a procedural thing. And so I think that we are changing the conversation midstream and getting hung up, to Ingrid's point, in the weeds. And so I would like to stress that we have plenty of opportunity in future conversations to discuss traffic mitigation ideas. We talk about traffic in town all the time. We have Transportation Commission. We can kick this down. You will be on council for 3+ more years. You can see that this does not get left on the table and not addressed moving forward. I think that we have a commitment to the community at large. We have heard from several people in those neighborhoods tonight in support of moving forward with this project. I have not heard from anybody tonight that makes me think that anybody doubts the validity of pursuing the South Bridge as we have kind of stated and committed to. So I don't want to amend my motion tonight. I would like to stay on topic and then, keep all these ideas for future conversation.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Schachter.
Well, I would agree with Councilor Zelinski. At this point, I think we are maybe making it more complicated. I agree with Councilor Townsley, and actually I agree with a lot with what the other Councilors Schmal and Smith have said, but at this point, to me, it's fairly simple. Do we take the most likely path forward to be able to make future decisions, including calming, including tolling elsewhere on the bridge, not all the details. So to me, it's, do we move forward at this point and allow staff to bring us information, allow the feds to bring us information? Can we move forward or not? And then we'll make a decision down the road. Can we afford it? How do we pay for it? Is the bid okay? But we can't do that, I believe, if we insist on the tolling option on the bridge right now and the other details that are extremely thoughtful, part of which we already have an obligation from staff And we can add those details subsequent, but not at this point is my belief. Thank you.
Thank you. And Counselor Smith.
Thank you. Appreciate Councilor Zelinski's clarification. I probably should have pitched that as what is traditionally called a friendly amendment to see if the mover and seconder wanted to accept it. With that response, I would formally move what I just recited, seeking a second. Thank you.
Just, for the fun of like all of the parliamentary procedure, Counselor Smith has just offered a substitute main motion, which would amend the main motion on the table.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
so,
Okay.
yes. So if there is a second, then you would take a vote on that, which could potentially amend the main motion. If there is no second, it will die for lack of a second.
Thank you, Carl. Do we have a second on the subsequent motion? I see none. It dies for lack of second. So back to the original motion. Any more discussion? Counselor Townsend.
Yeah, I think I agree that we should try to keep it plain and simple tonight and move forward from that standpoint. But I also like what Counselor Smith has put forward, and I think that I would definitely tell him that I'm very interested in looking at this as we go forward with more information. Don't let it die. I think some things like this and mitigation efforts and how we're going to pay for it and what that's going to do to our future budgets and what it's going to do to what are, if somebody comes to us 5 years from now and says, well, here's a great idea. And we say, well, we can't afford that because we're paying for the bridge still. I think we need to have those conversations. But I think the motion as it's been put forward tonight, we should clean this up, move to where we're going to get more information, not necessarily say, yeah, this is something that we go carte blanche on and take off with. But it's something that we're going to get more information enough to make those decisions in the future. So I do like this. You've got my full support down the road in doing this, but do I want to do it tonight? Probably not.
Thank you. Any other discussion at this point? Any other comments? Okay, I'll see none. I don't have much to add. I said my thing last time. I believe this is vital for all of us. I believe it's not if the fire is going to happen, it's when the fire is going to happen. We have to be ready. And I believe that I'm sticking to the original intent. This bridge was supposed to be an egress and a second access to town, and that's what I'm sticking with. And I believe. Thank you, Councillor Smith, for your thoughtfulness in preparing this for all of us. But like Councillor Townsley just said, I think this is for a future discussion. So with that, I will call the question. I just want to make sure everybody's clear. A yes means we're moving forward without toll.
The motion passes 5-2.
Thank you. Absolutely. Mayor Pro Tem.
And I just wanted to also thank you, Counselor Smith, for your thoughts on this. And I do hope that we will continue to work towards, the mitigation methods that you seek. So don't think that because I didn't want to amend my motion, I'm not committed to that. I just tonight wanted to keep it clear on what this particular issue was.
Okay, thank you. I think we're gonna do a 5-minute recess, just to reset here. No, it's good. You're good. Ordinance 2025-27 sidewalk requirements for ADUs. Watkins, please.
Good evening, council. I don't have much to share with you all tonight. This is going to be the first reading of an ordinance based on the direction from the last meeting, October 2nd. And in the draft ordinance, we have exempted ADU projects from having to pay the sidewalk fee in lieu or having to construct a sidewalk where it's missing. So happy to answer any questions and give you more background if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to staff at this point? Okay, we'll see none. Any comments from the public about the ADU sidewalks? Also see none. Anybody online? No, close the public portion, move it back to council, entertaining a motion in ordinance 2025-27 sidewalk requirements for ADUs. Councillor Townsley.
I move that ordinance 2025-27 sidewalk requirements for ADUs be adopted as written.
Okay, thank you. Motion approved. Councillor, Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any comments? Right. There's a first reading. Any comments? We'll see none. I'll call for the question.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Watkins. Thanks for being here. Item 10, planning file rezone 000048-2025 rezoning from Glenwood Springs Mall PUD to M1 mixed use corridor, 51027 Highway 6 and 24. Jim Harcastle.
For this to pop up here in a moment. Good. Thank you for your patience. Jim Hardcastle, I'm your long-range principal planner with community development. This evening, we're here to talk about a rezoning that is brought to you by an applicant, the Glenwood Springs Mall and associated other landowners out there that comprise 4 parcels to the south along 6-124 and 1 undeveloped parcel, which is for parking only on the corner next to Alpine Bank. Oh, excuse me. This is just information that is found in the staff report. Wanted to just point out where the parcel is in West Glenwood. It comprises this the entirety of the mall area, and it is south of the county area to the that is recently been developed into storage. What's in front of you this evening is an ordinance amendment to rezone a parcel of property that otherwise wouldn't be able to attain the use and the rights and enjoyment of what it would typically need to be gained by going through a special use permit, variance, or administrative adjustment. And staff, as you'll find later, and throughout the staff report has indicated that it meets the intent of the code. So in that regard, it was accepted and we're able to move forward with that. Long drawn out staff recommendation is for approval of all the parcels and tracts that you see there. It is to allow the establishment of the M1 mixed use corridor, which does pertain to all of the parcels in the original PUD, the Glenwood Springs Mall PUD. This is just to share with you, and if any conversation should come up regarding setbacks, any other site requirements within this M1 mixed zoning district. And just for the purposes of understanding what it is that we're talking about, I typically don't like to read off of the slide, but the M1 district is intended to accommodate mixed-use development with walkable and active streetscapes on Glenwood's primary roadways. The mix of uses in the M1 district is intended to accommodate lighter intensity commercial districts with limited auto-oriented uses compatible with surrounding residential neighborhoods. The M1 district is also intended to offer a diverse mix of housing opportunities at varying densities. Here is an overall western Glenwood Springs map. The adjacent parcels in yellow font are city zoned properties. The others in white surrounding it are county zoned parcels. And you'll see with this examination here that there is a full agglomeration of developed commercial uses in and outside the city in western Glenwood. The current zoning throughout the city is typically in this area is typically PUD. You'll see this is a residential PUD. This is all M1, which is the zoning district that the mall is proposing to be elevated to or exchanging from that original PUD. In a general sense, with the surrounding community uses, intensity, and level of infill development that have occurred in the past, it is supportive with the mall, which has been fully developed and built out and occupied at times in the past, and is looking to modify how they do what they do in the future with this rezoning. There's a color coding here that identifies a yellow for the original zoning PUD, and there's only a small handful of uses. And the pink are identifying the fact that there are no special and conditional uses, but you'll see the pink align within my table in the next slide. This is just a brief history to let you know, without a whole lot of explanation, albeit that it has moved from unincorporated Garfield County. It is annexed and it has moved through the PUD process. And now quite some time later, they're looking to modify this and apply M1 zoning. With that in mind, you can see that from the previous list, which was very limited and not very specific, within a full examination of our use table, I've broken everything down here to identify not 64, but 65 allowed uses in 22 use categories within the M1 district, which would allow the mall to then diversify and share a future proposal to whether it be tenants or those for items for sale within the mall. The idea that there is a specificity within not only the yellow table side, but the pink, which is conditional use, which you have heard before. Special use permits as conditional are much more able to proceed and move into a use once a public hearing and a full examination of what it is that they are doing in line with a number of criteria, which makes it much more difficult to obtain a use in some cases. But within the idea of the yellow permitted use by right, this doesn't just always go to a building permit process. There are levels of review and examination that we have for this grouping of uses. In general, the rezoning does meet the mixed use corridor zoning district ideal. It does meet the intent of the municipal code. Not much to show here, just to let you know that these are the two lots that we're talking about, tract E and tract F. There's a dividing line here with not numbered or fully drawn out parking, but to show that there is quite a a bonus number of parking spaces that is above and beyond what is being used or what it's being used for at the mall at this point. This was the track G only for parking, and then these other 4 are separate ownership of the mall. And most of you are familiar, but I'll share with you that this entrance and this entrance allow for not a frontage of these buildings, but an access along this interior drive, which has, and I'll back up to this in a second, has an impact on this minimum and maximum zoning setback from 6 and 24. This 5-foot minimum indicates that a building can't be any closer than 5 feet to the front, to the right of way, and it can't be any further back than 60 foot. With that being said, you can probably see that the front of the building doesn't fit within these 2 green lines. That means that anything that is created by this zoning that's not in here is legal non-conforming. Now, if they were to demolish any portion of this and move it backwards, it becomes, it increases the legal non-conforming aspect of the building and wouldn't be allowed. If they chose to put a canopy, for example, on and move it closer to the right of way, a building permit would be issued if they met all the conditions and structurally it was presented correctly. I'm just flying back and forth. Sorry about that. Let me step back to this real quick. This is a table that I wanted to put up for the applicants. They'll discuss it here in a moment. It has to do with parking. The fact that there has been more than enough parking. There is enough parking with an excess for the proposed M1 zoning district. The future land use map within the comprehensive plan also has been dedicated to understanding how we use land in the future. And with that in mind, the idea that this area also is in line with what has been existing and what it is intended to continue to do with the expanding of the M1 district. No significant agency comments came in after we reviewed as a departmental group. There was one email comment that came in prior to the P&Z meeting, and it only had to do with the fact that the northern owner wanted to make sure that the current mall owner was aware that there was an access easement agreement that needed to be maintained in the future. The rezoning criteria and findings all meet favorably. Those areas in pink were just expansions at the P&Z meeting that were added on to make sure that there was clarity with the zoning change and how it is found to be presented favorably. Your action request in front of you this evening is meeting with staff recommendation for approval of the rezoning request with the findings and conditions on page 9 and 10. I left this on here just to make sure that everyone was clear that number 2 was struck. There is no reason to ask for that this particular easement agreement to be revisited. It's still in place and it is acting properly, so there's no reason to address it. Here is an alternative action item motion to deny, if you would so choose. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you do have the ability to approve with conditions, or deny the application this evening. You may also continue the hearing with a request for specific information that would allow you to make a decision fully informed later in the future by continuing this public hearing. That, I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Questions to staff? Counselor Smith.
Thank you. Jim, might you be able to reach back and say the first thing you said again? This rezoning proposal, roughly, I think what I heard is this rezoning proposal provides more opportunity than a PUD would, or that the current PUD does, or?
That's something that I think would be perfect for the applicant to expand on, but I will just say that when you look at the existing PUD use allowances and you compare it to what is set forth and allowed within the M1, they are more clearly defined within the M1.
Okay. I also remember kind of a qualitative phrase in your sentence that this rezoning allows it to more fully accomplish its potential or something, a kind of a qualitative statement. I should have written it down more thoroughly, but is this more than just they've got more options? Is there kind of a qualitative level to that?
I was probably alluding to something that the applicant could speak more clearly to, because it's more in the confine of what it is that they have brought the rezoning to a public hearing for in the first place.
Thank you.
Mhm.
This may be just a corollary to that question, and so maybe also saved, but how was M1 in particular chosen for this proposal? Was that just straight from the applicant, or was there a consultation in which city staff had an opportunity to advise what is most appropriate or otherwise?
In April this year, ordinance number 11 series 2025 amended a number of different things within the development code. And one of those was clarifying and adding to the M1 zoning district with a number of uses. One of those was the bolded item right here, retail and shopping center, as there really was no clear identified shopping center option within the zoning districts. With that in mind, looking at M1 fully at this time with what's operating on the property is supported by the M1.
Thank you. Appreciated your observations about parking, which is partly, I think, part in your presentation and in kind of thinking about it. The parking out there currently is excessive to the need. There's a lot of asphalt unused, and it's deteriorated and unsightly, which relates to level of activity in the property. And so this might be sure that whatever level of parking ends up would be more right-sized. At another point in your presentation, you said there is sufficient parking to support the M1 rezoning. How do we know that before we see actual individual development proposals?
That's something else I'd like to let the applicant speak to. But in general, when you look at what is in place and what is potential within the mall section itself, the western section, so tracks E and F, there was an expectation of what type of businesses on average would be allowed in the vacant areas.
Okay.
And then to extrapolate that out and say, this is what the build out would be. It is certainly an expectation, not an affirmative as this is exactly what it would be. To follow up with that, you also would want to consider, as somebody is wanting to purchase one of the units, a portion of the mall, or rent, they would want to look at what is potentially available to them within this parking plan with what they have. And if I were renting, I wouldn't rent somewhere where I wouldn't be allowed to rent somewhere where I didn't have enough parking available to me.
Thank you. There are a couple of particular phrases that caught my eye, and you recited at least one of them, that one of the intentions of the M1 zoning is that the area would result in walkable and active streetscapes. Another phrase is provisions of M1 result in lighter intensity commercial districts and limited auto-oriented uses compatible with surrounding residential neighborhoods. Are those aspirations, or are there regulatory details that really make sure those things happen?
They're aspirations, and they don't come to fruition exactly within the physical extent of what you might see right at 6 and 24 or further back as you move away, not just within the parcel itself, but away from a rush and a movement of heavier traffic. You see that those surrounding residential areas could be able to visit the types of businesses that would be allowed within the permitted use list. And they would want to visit those kinds of businesses without having to make a long drawn out trip to get there. The walkability is certainly an aspiration for sure.
Aspiration or otherwise, those sound like cool things to me. Can they be accomplished in this particular location? Or asked differently, we have to look at the surrounding uses and neighborhoods and structure and infrastructure to anticipate whether that really will work that way. If we're trying to make it walkable and there's a crummy sidewalk to the east along 6 and 24, where does that larger continuity come into play?
I think there's a combination of what is possible when you look at it from the perspective of a landowner, which we don't have any control over. We have the aspect of public works, engineering, city, streetscape, investments. Every time we look at trying to beautify an area, what can we do, or where can we make adjustments and improvements in the community that kind of meet those words within that M1, which are supported throughout and quite often in the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Looking at your background material and then reading some more about the M1 zone in particular, the chart that you included that lists uses, both potential uses and uses by right, if I'm counting right, includes 8 different housing types as uses by right, pretty much the full spectrum of housing, ranging from small apartments and multifamily to tourist rentals, short-term rentals, townhouses, whole spectrum. As a trusted advisor recently termed this, M1's kind of the Wild West of design and planning. How do we corral that to really make it a community amenity?
It certainly is considered a transitional zone for a number of different reasons. When it comes to housing and that type of involvement in the depth of your question, I would love to invite our new director up to maybe speak to that if you'd like to.
Sure. Yeah, in terms of the mixed use zoning, I would say that mixed use zoning is kind of a desired zone district in many different communities because it's not so prescriptive in that it is limiting in uses. It kind of focuses more on development standards that allow for the goals and the aspirations of that zone district to come to light. So I wouldn't necessarily call it the wild, wild west. I would say that that's much more in line with more modern planning theory as opposed to the old west.
Thank you.
And if I could jump in just a little bit, I would say that you need to keep in mind that zoning isn't the end of the conversation. And so really here, we're probably talking about future redevelopment, which has to go through a wide variety of review by the Planning Commission and yourself. There are pages and pages of design standards and guidelines that would apply to it on layout and all of those things. And so if you're trying to achieve, say, a walkable community, that really happens at site-specific development application.
Both of those comments, the generalized and the site-specific, I find comforting. The term use by right still sounds pretty inflexible. And
yeah, use by right, subject to specific standards.
Okay.
I think that's a way to think about that. And you know, in terms of kind of some of the things you're mentioning about pedestrian network and infrastructure, you know, when we have a development proposal where we're looking at applying those development standards, we evaluate things like long range transportation plans to understand what the expectations are for redevelopment, and that's really where we get those type of things implemented. You know, the mall today operates with a certain number of uses that are allowed. Even without redevelopment, if a new tenant were to come in there based on one of those permitted uses, we would evaluate certain things like parking and separation from other uses. So and all of those thresholds are based on specifics in the code and the application, the level of review that we would apply to that.
thank you. I think I'm down to two questions. Jim, you highlighted the setback lines, kind of the minimum, maximum setbacks. Current mall building is a long way off from either of those lines. Does that imply additional buildings infill toward the road? Or does it imply demolition? Or is that, again, is that even a question at this stage?
Probably not as much as a question as just understanding what the creation of these non-conforming uses means. And in the general sense, it's not something that staff had put a tremendous amount of worry or concern over. It just simply means that with something that's established in this area and is developed and built out like many other commercial uses, not physically speaking, but just having them present, makes this unique in the way it was developed, but allows it to expand and evolve within the city the way many other places probably weren't allowed to because they were on such smaller lots. Certainly redevelopment on a lot like this, which is hard to guess or postulate as to what it is that they might want to do, just has certain limitations. That's what it comes down to.
So whatever they might want to do as we get to site-specific review and all those other stages, one of the points of focus is going to be getting the edifice closer to the road.
Correct.
Okay.
With the lots, with the way they are currently oriented and created.
Great. Does the last question for now, does the M1 zoning allow for a municipal fire station?
Questions? So. Community facility, yeah. Yes.
Third one down.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your patience with my getting an impromptu lesson in planning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions to staff at this point? Okay, let's see none. Thank you, Jim. Would the applicant care to come forward? Present your item.
Hello, my name is Doug Pratt, and I'm a planner with the Land Studio, here with a team of folks, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves if I could do that real quick.
Please.
You guys want to go through this? Sorry.
Come on.
Hey, Chad Lee, land use attorney. I live in the city.
Jeff Peterson, Iron Mountain Engineering. Engineering consultant.
I'm Frank Woods. I own the mall. In some capacity, the building to the west, which has Tractor Supply and Boot Barn and the Driver's License Bureau, it's a family company. And so is the mall, a different family, same family, but a different structure.
Okay, thank you.
And I've owned it since 1982.
I'm going to share my screen here real quick, if that's okay. The request has been sent.
There we go.
Okay, again, my name is Doug Pratt with the Land Studio. Julie Pratt and I have been working with the applicant, with Frank Woods, on putting this application together for this rezoning request. With that, the purpose of the request is to rezone the mall from the original 1979 PUD. Just for a little bit of background and context, the 1979 PUD was actually approved by Garfield County. So this was all prior to annexation. So the current zoning that is in place now was not approved by the city. It was approved by the county in 1979. When the city annexed the property in 1984, they adopted the zoning that was approved by Garfield County. So just to give you a little context for how that zoning became incorporated into the city. Again, the purpose of the request is to propose to rezone to the M1 zone district so that we can align with the city of Glenwood Springs standards that are in the zoning code, so that we can utilize the M1 zone district standards and the code and the process within it to provide a clear framework for current and future land use on the property, and also to utilize it as a first step towards revitalization of the West Glenwood Mall property. So you saw this graphic before. I think I colored my Glenwood Springs Mall property pink like the rest of M1, so I don't really have to, but it's again to give you some context that this isn't in the context of the adjoining M1 zone district, which runs along Highway 6 and 24. So in terms of compatibility, it is compatible with the adjoining zoning. To the west is PUD, and I think, as Jim Hardcastle pointed out, the adjoining properties are also in Garfield County, the property to the north, but they have commercial uses. The property consists of 7 tracts. So the Glenwood Springs subdivision is tracts A through G. The uses that are there now are an Alpine Bank, a Planned Parenthood, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, Big O Tires, the Glenwood Springs Mall, and the Wood King property, which Frank Woods just briefly described. Just in terms of how the property is now being utilized, it is underutilized. The PUD is a handful of pages, maybe a half a dozen pages that have kind of outdated language. And again, they were adopted when the city annexed back in the 80s, the Glenwood Springs Mall into the city. It also lacks some clarity for a lot of the allowed uses. The code has much better clarity, much better definitions for the allowed uses. So again, trying to utilize the standards in the code that's currently in existence to provide for some revitalization opportunities in the future. This is just a brief an overview of the survey plat. So again, it's tracks A. Can you see that cursor? Yeah. So tracks A, which is Alpine Bank, B, which is Planned Parenthood, C, which is Big O Tires, D, which is O'Reilly Auto Parts, E, which is the Wood King property, F, which is the rest of the mall property, just for context, this property line resides along the Penny's, the front of the Penny store, or sorry, the old Penny store living in the past. And then G is this funky little parcel in the corner, which I'm not sure how that got there, but it's a parking parcel on the corner by Alpine Bank. Conformance with an M1 zoning, again, the existing businesses are allowed uses in the M1 zone district. Maybe to expand on one of your questions, Councilman Smith, we did talk to the city both about M1 and the M3 zone district. At the time, the M3 zone district allowed for a retail shopping center. The M1 zone district did not. The M3 zone district did not allow for auto service facility, which Big O is. So with some work with the city, actually the city took some initiative as well to add retail shopping center to the M1 zone district so that we could have something where the uses that are currently existing in the Glenwood Springs Mall PUD also would be allowed uses within the zone district. So I'm sorry for all the words, but that was a little bit of history of our interaction with the city on that kind of M1, M3 rezoning discussion. Again, the setback requirements, I think the major setback requirement that is not met is the fact that the mall is well beyond the 60-foot maximum front yard setback in the M1 zone district. So future development clearly would be future development behind the mall, pushing things further back, probably not going to be allowed, pushing things forward in order to reduce that encroachment, reduce that variance from that existing condition is probably what needs to happen in the future. Again, the M1 zone district offers predictability for developers. That doesn't mean it's a slam dunk. It just means it gives them a process to go through to work on redevelopment. Parking on all tracks except for Alpine Bank and Big O's tires conform to the city's requirements. Big O Tires does have an agreement to use some of the mall parking for their use. So in terms of the number of parking spots that they use, they do have a legal right to use the ones that with an agreement with Frank on the mall parking lot. Then again, any non-conformance at this point will be a grandfathered in regardless of dimensional standards. So if redevelopment happens in the future, these non-conforming uses would need to be conforming if people are expanding their business or redeveloping their business. So again, there are some non-conformities that we considered grandfathered in. Again, this is not a development application. It's a rezoning application only. Some of our discussion has been in the past about residential development, and as a footnote, it's not being envisioned at this time. Could very well be envisioned in the future. That's not a commitment. It's also an observation that the current Ross lease, which is the store in the mall, won't allow for residential development on Tract F. So there's some circumstances where we'd have to work through for residential development to happen, but just wanted to be clear that there are some circumstances to get through. Benefits of rezoning creates a consistent zoning framework across all of the Glenwood Springs Mall tracts A through G. It encourages economic reinvestment in a key community property. It defines clear development standards for future proposals. It supports long-term revitalization of West Glenwood, and it ensures public review / input on future development. What the rezoning is not, it's not a development plan. The proposed rezoning does not authorize construction or physical development at this time. Any future construction or redevelopment will require separate review and approval through the city's land use and building permit process. I think some of your questions, this happens to be in a use by right. This is the future land use proposals within the Glenwood Springs Mall, M1 zone district that are a use by right and involve new structures or major site development must complete the City of Glenwood Springs site architectural plan review. So in the city's code, as you all know, there are site plan review standards. There are architectural plan review standards. And there are use standards for the uses that are defined in the code. So even as a use by right, if there's new development, new structures, those new structures would have to go through site plan review. For special use permit projects. So some of the uses that were highlighted in the staff report were yellow for use by right, purple for special use. Those special use permits would have to go through the special use permit process. So again, you would see that. Just also to qualify site plan review, architectural plan review, 3 levels of that. There's administrative review, minor site plan review, and major. So there's a process the city has set up to bring those forward either to administration, planning and zoning commission, or all 3: administration, planning and zoning, and city council. So those parameters are set up for future review. This is all of these kind of redevelopment with new structures and major redevelopment of the site. Just as an example, the parking lot would have to meet the landscape standards that are in the current code. Those landscape standards are not in our current PUD. So, so there are things that are in your standards in your code that will all apply. That's just one small example. And I'm a landscape architect, so I know what the landscape standards say. So it's a little bit of an example of just the things that we would have to comply with. Again, this aligns with city goals. It supports smart growth in an underutilized area. I think also maybe a comment on the walkability. I think walkability standards are important. Other developments on Highway 6 and 24 have been required to improve their pedestrian access to those parcels. I would think as this redevelops, that would be the same, and maybe supporting some of your comments about pedestrian access to what looks like a very large parking lot with a mall that's a couple hundred feet away. So again, those standards are in the code. Again, this improves clarity for landowners, tenants, and developers, and it strengthens West Glenwood as a commercial and community hub. And with that, again, we need to align with the city's rezoning criteria. I think there's a couple of things to say just about that.
Thanks, Doug. I'll be brief. I know it's late. It's been a long day for you guys. But just to touch on something Councilor Smith said, this was a quite collaborative process. Carl and I have been talking for years about how can we start to revitalize the mall. I've got notes in my binder here. We sat down with city staff a year ago, and the conversation was, well, what steps can we take to just take the first step towards revitalization? And we discussed amending the current PUD. We discussed drafting a brand new PUD. In fact, we embarked on that. And then eventually we sat down with city staff. And we said, does that really make sense? Why don't we just continue the M1 district from the entire West Glenwood and bring it over here? So it was a quite collaborative process to get to where we are. The entire Glenwood Springs Mall PUD initial zoning resolution is 2 pages. It's 2 pages. And those 2 pages have so much uncertainty that in this modern era of planning, it really scares away potential investors and prevents things that we want to do out there. And so you've got your own zoning code. We're seeking to come into it. PUD, and Carl, correct me if I'm wrong here, but PUD is sort of it's a special zoning. It's intended to permit flexibility where otherwise the underlying zoning doesn't get you there. And it's a process that typically you see more intensity because of the public benefits that have been given by the developer. And that happened in 1979 in the county. And it's odd that it was annexed in without changing the zone district. I'm sure there was a reason for it at the time. But that's typically not what happens. When things are annexed into municipalities, you assign a zone district or you approve a PUD at that time. We are just asking now, after the annexation 40 years later, to come into your city code to address the criteria specifically. And I think the staff report did a really good job, not to mention the Planning Commission's unanimous recommendation of approval. Page 8 of the comprehensive plan, the mall is specifically referenced as a secondary center intended to accommodate future growth through infill development and provide a mix of uses. Page 9, priority 1.3, focus growth in areas of change, specifically identifies the mall. Page 2, priority 3.4, revitalize underutilized properties, specifically references the mall This is my favorite one, page 124, overall comment themes. The most commented theme was encourage walkability, but the second most one was the mall. How do we revitalize the mall? Finally, page 45, encourage redevelopment, prioritize public investment in identified revitalized areas or spur private investment. The Glenwood Springs Mall and properties immediately north may be developed into a mixed-use community. We go to criteria number 2, consistent with the purpose statement of proposed district. M1 district is intended to accommodate mixed-use development. Criteria 3, substantial change in the subject area warrants a zoning change. I would argue the most substantial change is the fact that it's been annexed into the city, not to mention the 2023 comprehensive plan, which I've already quoted. The current PUD was intended for a large indoor mall, which, as you know, are not exactly thriving in this day and age. The blighted nature of the project is also a substantial change that warrants a zoning change. Number 4, and by the way, criteria 3 is an and or criteria 4, which as an attorney, I just hate because it's really just or. But I'm going to stress criteria 4. The intensity of the new development, in the new zoning district is not expected to create significantly adverse impacts. It is directly adjacent to M1. We're just continuing that M1 all the way down. Again, the Planning Commission overwhelmingly supported this. I don't know if you went and heard the meeting, but they were extremely supportive that we were taking the first step to revitalize this piece of property. So this request squarely meets the legal criteria of your code, and we ask you to please approve it. I think, Doug, you might have one more slide.
Yeah, I think Chad said probably all of this. So again, it's trying to align this property with city standards, provide a clear direction for its future, lay the groundwork for revitalization, and requesting from you the rezoning to the M1 mixed use corridor zone district. So I think that's it. I'll let you decide how to.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, guys. Questions to the applicant at this point? No, you're out of questions, my friend. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. Not so much a question as just a clarification. Doug, when you were talking about the dynamic of around the housing potential that the zoning does allow.
It does, yes.
You mentioned not intended at this time, in part because of an agreement with one of the tenants or something like that?
There's a Ross is the main tenant in the mall. Well, I don't know if I should say is a tenant. So
Do you want to address this?
sure. I'm passing the question.
So Ross is a tenant that has been at the mall since 2012, and as part of their lease, they prohibit any development of residential nature on Tract Ave, which is the larger portion of the mall. They have also restricted similar uses, which over the course of the last decade plus has prevented developments within the mall of similar nature, like Kohl's, for instance, that was interested in coming to our community that was not permitted. Hope that answers the question. And I'm happy to expand upon it.
And those contractual restrictions endure.
They would endure until through the duration of Ross's lease, and they have several continuation clauses that wouldn't allow them to gain additional 5-year extensions on their existing lease.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councilor Townsley.
That Ross lease, that could be bought out, that could be negotiated. There's nothing to stop that from going away.
I would say that they have been tenacious. And
Sounds like it.
That lease. I would. Chad wants to speak to it, but I think that
You have more experience than I do.
I think tenacious is it is, it's a good location for them. They've done well there. They have good exposure. They have plenty of parking. They seem very happy. Yeah, there are possibilities, but
all that controls is Track F, right?
Right.
And I'd say that's kind of an elephant in this room is the Ross lease, and it really limits what we can do. And so rezoning is the one of the only tools we have at our disposal that help us revitalize this.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions? To the applicant? We'll see none. Well, thank you very much. Does the public have any input on this? I don't have a sign-up sheet and nobody's raising their hand. Anybody online? You can't see the hands, but I assume no. Nope, looks clear. Okay, great. I'll close the public portion, bring it back to council. I am entertaining a motion in planning file rezone 000048-2025 rezoning from Glenwood Mall PUD to M1 mixed use corridor 51027 Highway 6 and 24. Councilor Zelinski.
I would like to move that we approve the rezoning of the Glenwood Springs Mall property from its existing to mixed use. Based on the findings and conditions of pages 9 through 10. I have to say more?
Yeah, you do. Excluding condition 2.
Excluding condition 2. Which is deemed as unnecessary by legal.
Perfect. Thank you. And a second, Councilor Schachter.
I second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councilor Townsley.
One question. I thought we were going to have a chance after this to go back with questions for staff. Is that correct? The way you laid that out?
Yeah, if you have some clarifications you'd like to make,
Yeah,
I think
if
as
I
long
could.
as the chair is okay, we're good. So go ahead.
Yeah, great. What if, just again, my question would be switching to the M1 zoning. The opportunity, there's a lot of high density development in the M1 zoning that leads up and kind of is adjacent to this along there. There's no plan for residential use now. What would be in the amount of land that we have there, the max density that could occur residentially? If everything fell into place and, they just said, okay, we've met all this, we've done all this, everybody wants it. What kind of max density could we see on that property?
That would be a little difficult to ascertain off the cuff unless you'd had some kind of idea they looked at before.
Well, I would just say that most of our commercial and mixed-use zone districts do not have maximum density standards associated with them. The things that really limit density on any parcel in the city are kind of some of the applicable standards that we talked about previously. It's what are you doing with stormwater? What are your parking requirements, your off-street parking requirements for that use? What's your minimum open space requirements? So those are and one very important one is also height. So that also limits that. So that is a difficult answer. Even if you were to kind of pare that down and draw a box on a piece of paper, there's then architectural standards that apply. So that's not it's not an easy question to answer. What I think is an easy question to answer is that any development that includes 10 or more units, conversion of any of that space would come back to you for an approval. So you would be the body that would evaluate those impacts on adjacent properties, traffic, and other standards.
And specifically with the charter change, obviously anything over 4 units of residential has to come back to you as well. So the level of scrutiny is extraordinarily high that it would go through. But to follow up on the question, it's very difficult to calculate gross densities and make those even vaguely applicable because of circulation, parking, all of those kinds of things, as Trent pointed out.
4. I thought it was 10. 4. Sorry. Right. Go. Happened while you were going.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. You were on, dude.
Oh, I never turned myself on. I apologize.
No worries. Any more discussion? I think the motion is pretty clear. The motion is to approve. So it's the second. If I don't see any more discussion, I'll call for the question.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Thank you guys for coming in. Thank you. Thanks. Good luck. I guess might be in order. Good luck. See what's gonna happen. Nope, I do not. I'm thinking about moving item 12 up a spot so they don't have to wait any longer. We don't need a motion. I just need a quick head nod. If everybody's okay with that. All right, great. So let's jump into item 12, 1141 Riverside Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can kind of kick this off. I was contacted several months ago by Gene Smith, who owns property on Riverside. And he said, I know you guys own property around me and purchase some. Love my city. Wanted to give you the opportunity to purchase this before I put it on the market. We have considered it a couple of times. He's been very patient while we did that. And I think he's ready to go ahead and put that property on the market, but wants to give us, a chance to make a final decision about whether or not we would like to put an offer forth. We did appraise the property and it came in at $920,000. We'd have a number of due diligence things that we would have to work out if you guys do make an offer. But I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Public Works Director Langhorst, who can explain to us the benefits that might be available in terms of access to the property around there that we own and operate.
Good evening, council. Give me a moment. I'm going to pop some things up and down. This is a made-up presentation as I was sitting there. Oh, right. Find the right PDF will be going. Okay. All right. We did talk about this a little bit earlier today. You guys got some of the information kind of passed to you. I was kind of the one that asked Steve to bring this back and have this conversation. I know that Gene and Jane are kind of excited about going one way or the other, and they just want to know. Part of the conversation is that the city, since, I don't know, the 80s, Carl can probably back me up, early 90s, has been buying property along here. Originally, it was transportation reasons, but recently it's been basically river corridor preservation, if you want to call it that. We bought the adjacent parcel, which was the Raymond parcel to the north back in 2017. We bought the Waters parcel, which I think was in 23. We bought that, which is to the north of that also. And if you look at this map, I kind of put it together. It's obviously not all the properties the city owns, but just in this adjacent area along the river corridor, basically we own from the RAFTA facility to the south. There's two properties along Riverside that are privately owned. We own the Waters parcel, the Raymond parcel. The Smith parcel would be the next one to the south, along with another Raymond parcel. And then you go to the Lone Pine parcel, and we own all the way basically to 23rd Street. If you look across the river, we also owned those parcels over there. I believe that we were kind of gathering all of this for the purpose of potentially a 14th Street bridge at one point. Very, very expensive. Probably not a connection we need at this point. But the whole purpose of this kind of conversation is connectivity. Is if there is anything that we ever wanted to do down on the Lone Pine parcel, I'm going to call that the 14th Street Bridge parcel. We have a pedestrian connection to that from Coach Miller. That pedestrian connection goes down, goes across 14th Street Bridge. There would be an option if this was purchased to actually connect to Riverside Drive itself and create the loop that goes back up to a RAFTA approved connection and at Riverside Drive or 12th Street, whatever you want to call it at that moment. There's a water line through there. There is a very odd 1905 easement for 16 feet along there that creates the access from river, or that creates the access called Riverside Drive. There's no location for it, and there's no length associated with it. If you read it, it's very confusing, but it basically says you can drive to your property. in this location. It doesn't say you could drive across the property, it just says you could drive to the property. So it's a little bit of ambiguous of what it really means. The question would be is if the city was looking to do anything down here, do we want the connectivity from the parcels that we own on the north and the road access to the parcels we own on the south, and the bridge, the pedestrian facilities, and everything else that's associated with that in the future? I know none of us are wizards. We don't have the crystal ball. We can shake it and say yes or no, but it is an opportunity to potentially purchase this property and give the city the access across there in the future if ever needed. That is kind of a rough way to say it's a good piece to buy if we can afford it because there's connectivity associated with it. There's a water line through there. There's an electric line through there. One of the previous questions today was, is it in or out of the FEMA floodplain? If I had read through the appraisal a little bit farther, it's actually right here on the appraisal. The subject parcel is completely out of the floodplain mapping associated with the Roaring Fork River. Some of the other parcels we have are within it, but this one actually is completely outside of the floodplain itself. Scrolling through here a little bit more, you can see that part of the parcel, I just kind of started marking this thing up, about 20% of the parcel is actually from the road. It is the slope up to the Rio Grande property. It's around 7,500 square feet. So it's about 20% of the parcel. If you go past the house, it actually slopes down to the Raymond parcel also. So there's just kind of this little bench in between those two sloping portions. And I did want to mention that the house is entirely stucco. He missed that. That was all for you. And you just,
I'm sorry.
Say it again. The house is entirely stucco. See, Marco loves stucco.
Stucco lives.
If you look at the parcel that we purchased back in 23, we paid about $19 a square foot for that parcel, which the bigger the parcel is, the less you pay per square foot associated with it. If you do a contrast, that's about $730,000 this parcel is worth. If you go through the entire analysis, which is actually pretty thorough, I'm sure Council Townsend's already kind of looked through every single portion of this thing. If you go small lot and you compare the square footage cost of vacant land, this parcel is worth about 1.5 million. If you go to the larger lot, it's worth about 730,000. If you kind of look at the middle ground, the appraisal seems to be pretty relative where it should be for a vacant lot. I don't agree with the cost for demoing the house because the house is, because it has a basement, over 1,500 square feet. So the house would have to be reclaimed per our new demo code. It means you can't bulldoze it. You have to literally take it apart and recycle every single portion of it. So 40,000 is probably more like 60 or 70,000. It's not a huge waiver one way or the other in the cost, but it would fall under a reclaimed demo code.
Because of the basement?
Because it's still square footage of the building that has to be, it's a heated area. So you have to include that in the square footage. We can hash that through with Trent, but.
No, I believe you. I'm just surprised.
Yep. It is zoned RM1 at this point. If you were talking about development potential, it is in medium density, just like the mall was potentially put into. And that's about all I have for you at this moment. Do you have questions?
Any questions to Matt about the property? No, we'll see none. So you need clear direction from us, I assume.
Yeah, what staff is looking for is your direction as to whether or not you would like us to make a formal offer on the property or if you would like to pass. And that's kind of what we're looking for. Those are your two choices.
Okay, sounds good. Bring it back to council and I'm entertaining a motion. Sure, please go. I have to turn the thing on. Absolutely. Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski.
If we were to put an offer in on this property, where would the money to purchase it come from?
We would purchase this from the A&I fund. Right now, the total fund balance at the end of 2025 is forecast to be about $10 million. Of that $10 million, about $7 million of it is reserved. That includes a $3 million reserve that is just contingency.
Okay.
So we've got adequate funds for the purchase if you guys so choose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Townsend.
Maybe I heard wrong, but are we looking at doing a cash purchase or borrowing the money to do this?
I would suggest that we would just pay cash.
Okay, any other questions before we bring it back? Councilor Weimer.
if we were to want to move ahead with an offer, we're allowed some period of due diligence, we're allowed, do we need to talk about certain contingencies that might be involved in the process, or are the standard ones kind of apply?
Yeah, I mean, I think unless it was something outside what would be standard due diligence and
Yeah.
contingencies, which I would include in any purchase and sale agreement.
Yep.
If there's something beyond kind of the usual that you would like, that, you know, I would want to hear that. Otherwise, I think it's a question of whether or not you want to make an offer with standard, you know, due diligence.
Yep.
Conditions. I would suggest 60 days for due diligence, and probably a close date around that.
And if we don't include that detail in the motion, you just proceed.
Yeah,
sort of
no,
at standard.
I would proceed. I think the motion that I'd be looking for is to prepare an offer with the standard, you know, be considered standard contingencies.
Based on the appraisal. Okay, any other questions? No, we'll see.
Real quick to clarify,
Yeah.
I guess for Carl more than anything, we need basically a number, a purchase offer number and a number of days to do our due diligence. Does that get it done?
Yeah, that would be.
Okay, from us.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Bring it back to council. Item 12, 1441 Riverside Drive. Councilor Towns?
So just one last question, you know, with the piece of being 1,500 feet and having to recycle everything, that was not accounted for in the appraisal, correct?
The
It was
appraisal
about
accounted for
$40,000.
$40,000 to accommodate for the removal of the building if that's what we so choose to do. So yes, that they appraise it basically as vacant land because of the age of the building and the longevity of the stick built portion versus the mobile home, which is sitting on a foundation portion of it. So they basically said the best use of the property is vacant land.
Vacant land.
You're going to pay about 40 grand to remove this.
Okay, and you're saying it would cost about how much?
Guesstimate would be between 60 and 70 because of the actual, I don't know what's in there. I mean, I don't know if there's any asbestos or lead or any of those fun things that would go through the due diligence process, but it will be more to remove it. And we've got kind of estimated to be about 50% additional on top of a standard home to remove it. So if they're saying 40, we're probably saying 60.
And if when we did the other properties and we had to remove some stuff, there was asbestos, there was quite a bit. If we ran into those problems, what kind of money are you talking?
I think that we would find that out within the due diligence process. And then maybe that number changes, you know, hey, we found this, you know how due diligence works. We would go back to Gene and Jane and say, hey, we want a little bit more off the price kind of thing. And you would just work through that. But that's part of the due diligence process. We would get somebody in there to test everything.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with making an offer for the appraised value of 920,000 with a 60-day due diligence period and a closing right around there.
Okay, we have a motion. Looking for a second. Councilor Schachter.
Would second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Councilor Schachter?
Just want to make sure, based on our attorney's guidance, 60 days is adequate for the due diligence we need for this property, do you think?
If the Smiths even accept the offer, then we would immediately get somebody in there and we have people to do that.
Thank you.
I think we'd be able to do that. And these guys, you know, are great. So if we needed, you know, if we were having trouble scheduling or something, I'm pretty confident that we could get it done.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Townsley.
Two things. One, I think that you've shown a lot of benefit for it. I mean, the connectivity, those would all be great things to have. I think we're also staring down the barrel of borrowing a whole bunch more money out of the A&I fund, spending money out of the A&I fund. Timing on this, for me, probably couldn't be worse.
I know.
You know, for looking at doing this and also looking at an open-end place where we don't know what it's going to cost us to do a big project that we're looking at. And so do we go spend some of that money on a parcel that may be something we want in the quiver long-term, but do we spend that money now? I would at least start out with a friendly amendment that if we're going to have an additional $20,000 in cost before we even get started, that we would lower that offer to 900,000, just based on the fact that we know we have to take it apart differently to get this down. Or we could also look at, you know, at least being honest with people and going, okay, if our due diligence comes up with the fact that it's going to cost a lot more, at some point we would come back and go, we want to adjust the cost based on this. But my main concern, I think, again, is just the timing on this and spending money out of a fund that's going to probably get hit pretty hard. You know, whether we borrow money on this or we borrow more money on something else, we're still trying to come up with a lot more, you know, a bigger pieces of money. And the timing concerns me quite a bit.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, any response to the friendly amendment?
I think at this time, the due diligence, I think, would give us, I'm just trying to
Yeah, I
understand.
mean, I think what Councilor Chansley is trying to do
I
is be really
understand.
open and honest about the fact that we anticipate it's going to cost more than the appraisal listed to remove that. I guess from my standpoint, I think we're making a best guess just like the appraiser is, and we don't have an actual number yet. I think I'd almost rather work off of an actual number with the seller than make a best guess. And then if it's 80,000, feeling like we already, you know, said it was only going to be, you know what I mean? Like we're going to get to this a little bit of a price negotiation around removal and due diligence.
So that, yeah, that was going to be my question. I was like, in my mind, I was thinking the due diligence process would get us to a place where
Yeah.
we could have that negotiation. And I feel like doing it right now doesn't make as much sense. So I'm going to probably deny the friendly amendment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion on this? I see none. I'll call for the question.
The amendment is not included.
No. Straightforward.
The motion passes 6-1.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I just thank the Smiths? I mean, I think it is an admirable thing to come forward and say, you know, we like our community. We're going to give you this first shot. And they have been patient and great to work with. So thank you, guys.
All right.
You've sat here for a long time.
Yeah, you're very patient. Thank you so much. From us as well. Thank you, Matt. Okay, just a quick restroom. Okay, while we're getting ready for the item 11, 2026 budget public hearing. Councilor Weimer ran to the bathroom quick. He'll be right back, but we can still start unless you have a presentation or anything. No?
No, sir, no presentation. 2 weeks ago, we submitted the budget for the 2026. In the next meeting, you will vote to adopt that budget. I think that's in 3 weeks because we have an extra week in there. Tonight is your opportunity to hear from the public about any concerns or comments they have.
Okay.
I'm going to make 2 changes to the budget that we submitted 2 weeks ago. One of those will be in the capital projects fund for $160,000. That will increase the transfer out of capital projects into the fleet fund, and it will increase the fleet fund capital outlay for 2 police cruisers. Second change is we had an updated estimate for the mill levy in the rural fire district fund. We underestimated that by about $22,000. So I'd like to add that in. So that will increase the revenue in the rural fire district fund. It will increase the transfer out to the fire equipment replacement trust, and it will increase the transfer out to the fire EMS fund. That in turn will lower the transfer from the general fund to the fire EMS fund because we shore that up. And the amount of that was something like, it was nominal, like $22,000, I think. Other than that, you'll be voting on the budget that we submitted last time. So it'd be my preference not to make any more changes. If you guys want to talk about something or consider something, we can consider it in a budget amendment.
So no action needed tonight, really. We'll just have a public hearing.
Open it to the public.
And then we're doing
listen to what
the
anybody
final
has to
action
say,
is
you know.
in 3 weeks. Okay, great. Anybody from the public here that would like to speak on the budget? Please come forward, state your name and whether you live in the city or not.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wes Boyd. I do not live in city limits, but I do work for an organization that serves the city. I'm the executive director for Colorado Animal Rescue, or CARE. We're the animal shelter on County Road 114 at the Spring Valley campus. In the 2026 budget, you will see an animal sheltering line item for $10,000 in the police budget. I just wanted to bring some attention to that topic, and I am confident that this is a conversation that can be resolved within city leadership as well. But I did want there to be some awareness tonight that this is a problem for the animal shelter. And the end of 2022, the police chief elected to move the stray holding contract to Red Hill Animal Hospital in Carbondale. So stray animals that are picked up by the police department are taken to Carbondale now. That was the only funding from the city for our shelter, was through that contract. We serve a majority of the animals from Glenwood Springs as citizen strays and owner relinquishments. So there's a large amount of animals that come into the shelter that don't come through the police department. So currently our temporary patch was, sorry, I don't know why my voice is getting shaky, too many thoughts. Currently our patch was to utilize the Financial Advisory Board grant funding. This year we were not approved for any funding. So that means that for 2025, we have cared for 135 animals from Glenwood Springs addresses and are not getting any funding from the city. So we'd love to find a solution for this, whether that's working with the police chief to increase that budget line and to bring the stray holding back to the shelter, or to find another line item that allows for the animals that are coming to the shelter that don't involve the police department, which is a large number.
Okay, thank you. I do have a quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
If I may. How much money are you talking?
At this point, in 2022, we were hoping for a total of $20,000 in funding from the city. So we would love to see the city match the police department funding of $7,500 to $10,000.
So to get up to another 20,000 total roughly.
To be somewhere between 15 and 20,000 total.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the info.
I was on the same question.
Oh, you had the same question. Okay, yeah. Councilor Schachter.
Wes, thank you. You guys provide a great service and facility. Question, you mentioned certain number of strays from Glenwood Springs address.
Mhm.
Are those city limits address or Glenwood Springs addresses that cover a huge range?
We just pulled the reporting that I brought you today and that I shared with you by email from Glenwood Springs addresses without thinking of city limits. So I can dive into those. Currently, that number includes all Glenwood Springs mailing address or residential addresses. I'll have to do some work to see which are within city limits.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Since we're talking about this animal thing, any more comments about the animal shelter? Or actually, my question is, if we were to fund this, how would we fund it?
I mean, that's a discussion we would have to have. You'd have a
Right.
couple of different options there. Ultimately, the funds would come from the general fund somewhere.
Because I'm sure you don't have it in the budget.
Well, there's a line item for animal services, as you described, at $10,000.
Right.
Right.
But you don't have, yeah.
That would come from your direction or from the city manager's office.
Okay. So how do we proceed if we're inclined to help?
I would say that this is a very worthy cause. I'm happy to have the discussion. I'd like to put it on a work session.
Okay.
And just, kind of talk about the pros and cons, and then you
Okay.
guys can make a decision. And if we want to do it, we'll just add it to the next supplemental we do.
Okay, great. I think that's on my end. I'm okay with that. If I get 2 more nods, we're good to go. Okay, I think that's what we'll do. I hope
Thank you
this
all
will
for your
help you
consideration.
in
I
the future.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. Okay, anybody else from the public? Comment on the budget? See none, nobody online. We'll close the public portion and we'll look forward to voting on the budget in 3 weeks. Council comments. Councilor Smith.
Need to do this bit?
Yeah. You don't have
just
to.
assume.
You don't have to at all.
Need mechanics.
Oh,
Thank you. Concerning South Bridge. That is the way of good governance. And thoughtful decision-making. Tonight, And the days leading up to tonight included very thorough sharing of information, lots of documents, new documents, compare a variety of perspectives combined tonight with respectful listening and reconsideration of each of our own positions. And collaborating toward some agreement and towards some initial solutions. I at least partially disagree with the results of tonight's discussion and action. I think we did only half of what we needed to do, but I celebrate the manner, the process, and the tone we used to get through that discussion and to that action. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Schachter.
Yeah, I just want to,
Push the button again, please.
just want to give kudos to Parks and Rec and Gladys Arango for really successful Noches Latina that was joyful and under some globally stressful conditions, well attended and fun. And they did a great job of doing it. I think this was a third year, but very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Weimer.
Good.
Okay, Counselor Townsley. Counselor Small. Counselor Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
Yeah, I saw Gladys today and I gave her this bump.
Okay, great. I got nothing myself for tonight. City Manager. Quick update.
I have two quick things. Number one, we have a placeholder for a standing quarterly Urban Renewal Authority meeting that's coming up later this month. There's no business in front of that committee, so we're going to cancel that meeting. The second thing is I'm going to be out of town from November 1st to November 8th. So I will ask somebody who's going to be around to be acting city manager. I will, however, put the agenda for the next meeting together, and you can expect that all the hard stuff that's not any fun is going to be on that agenda.
Thank you, Steve. That's right. That's our answer to that. Carl.
Depending on how hard the stuff is, I'm taking the first week in November off. No,
It's fine.
Nothing tonight.
Okay, great. And Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski, trying to get used to it.
Yeah, I kind of forgot. I will not be here for the first meeting in November. My tennis team got a wild card to go compete in Las Vegas for sectionals, so.
Oh, that's terrible.
I know. It's where we probably get our little butts kicked, but it'll be fun doing it.
You'll get them kicked in Vegas.
Yeah,
That's right.
Vegas, baby.
Councilor Small.
Question for Carl, has the notice to,
Yes, it has.
has been
And
served?
suit has been filed as well. We're waiting to get it served.
So what is the timeline for that we should expect some reaction?
I don't know on the timeline for reaction. We gave 120-day notice on the cutoff as you guys directed, and we also filed suit for collection of the outstanding balance. Their current attorney was not authorized to accept service on that lawsuit, so we're trying to get the appropriate people served. And so we're just plowing forward.
Okay.
We have in the lawsuit against the city by Mitchell Cooper, we have some additional depositions scheduled and upcoming. We deposed one of their board members a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, good, thanks.
Great, good update. Just real quick, Liz, any correspondence?
No correspondence. Right.
Excellent.
I say one more quick thing.
Yes.
I don't want to do this in public too much because it embarrasses her, but I do want to say thank you to Yvette. Her audit is very strong every single year.
Every year.
I appreciate it.
I know.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
Yeah, Yvette, we think you're awesome. So tonight I think we'd like to go have a drink. Maybe we'll reconvene at El Tapatio if anyone's interested.
Margaritas, why not? Sound great.
We're fast.
The Tapatio, whatever. And with, entertaining a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, they were really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, a second?
Second.
No. Motion, a second.